please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? And because we're adding delegations over and above our allowed limit in the procedural bylaw, I will require a 2/3 vote to approve the... we need a motion to waive procedural bylaw first, Madam Clerk? Okay, so Councillor Maracas, thank you. Councillor Thompson. So to waive procedural bylaw to allow the additional delegations. All in favor? Requires 2/3. Contrary? That's carried. Thank you. And then, so back to the agenda as amended, simple majority. Councillor Kim? Councillor Perry? Comments or questions on the agenda as amended? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor's declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Councillor Maracas? Sorry, I didn't see your hand there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to state that this evening, Councillor Thompson has a motion before Council that deals with the closure of York University GO Station. As my wife takes the GO train and uses the York University GO Station every day, today Councillor Abel has sent me a text alleging that I have a conflict of interest, given that my wife takes the GO train and works at York. While it is my understanding that I do not have a pecuniary interest as defined by the Act, given that as per Section 4, subsection J of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, wherein it states that one does not have a pecuniary interest if said interest is an interest in common with electors generally. Clearly, the GO State train station service is an interest in common with electors generally, as anyone can take the GO train. However, as Councillor Abel has alleged that I do have a conflict of interest because my wife takes the GO train and uses the York U GO Station, and as I do not have time to consult a lawyer to ensure that my understanding of the Conflict of Interest Act is correct, and out of abundance of caution, I will have to decline to participate in the deliberations of Councillor Thompson's motion tonight.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk? Good. Any others? Thank you. We will move up. First is presentation, our favorite topic here in Aurora, Metrolinx, and we have Nick Spensieri, who's the corridor director, the Barrie Corridor from Metrolinx. And Mr. Spensieri, you have 10 minutes. We have a fairly busy night, so if I could keep you as close as possible for that 10 minutes, I would appreciate it. And I'm seeing nods from your colleagues.
I will do my best, Mr.
Thank you
Mayor.
very much, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Daw, members of Town Council, town staff, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting us here this evening. My name is Nick Spensieri, as the Mayor said, and I am the Director of Corridor Infrastructure for all things on the Barrie Line. With me is my colleague, Erin Moraz, Director of Communications and Community Relations, and she'll step up to the podium a little later on in the presentation. I would like to start tonight's presentation by acknowledging the partnership of staff in the town of Aurora on the capital program that's underway. We appreciate your insights and advice as we embark on this once-in-a-generation opportunity. I'm going to talk a bit about the work we plan on doing in York Region and in Aurora, but first a little context. Many people think our biggest challenge is getting people in and out of downtown Toronto every day, but it's not actually. Our real challenge is congestion that plagues the entire GTHA. I'm a resident of Aurora. I drive these roads every day, and I take the train every day. Like many of you, my friends and I always complain about traffic on the 400, 404, or any of the other roads around. It's a real challenge. And it's costing the GTHA billions of dollars a year. Right now, the average commute time to downtown Toronto can be up to 80 minutes. Over the next 25 years, York Region's population is expected to grow by 68%. Can you imagine what the commute time will be then? This is why Metrolinx believes that now is the time to make investments to improve transit in York Region and across the GTHA. The GTHA and York Region are in the middle of a large transformation with a goal that 80% of all residents in the GTHA will live within 2 kilometers of rapid transit access points. To give you a sense of the scope of what is planned, we envision building more than 1,200 kilometers of rapid transit. As a result, transit's share of overall travel in the GTHA is projected to double, relieving pressure from gridlocked highways and roads. Under our plan, rapid transit in the form of subways, trains, light rail, bus rapid transit lines will triple. Aurora will be connected to Crosstown, Finch LRT, and 15-minute service, which will terminate right here in Aurora. The plan also creates enormous economic benefits. such as 800 to 900,000 person years of jobs and an infusion to our economy in the area of 110 to 130 billion dollars. So what does Metrolinx do to make this happen? Well, at Metrolinx we plan, we build, and we operate transit. But as the Director of the Infrastructure on the Barrie Corridor, I'm here today to talk to you about what we are building and the improvements that are coming to Aurora. We're getting shovels in the ground on the civil works that are needed to support all-day, two-way, 15-minute service between Aurora GO Station and Union Station. So the cornerstone of GO expansion is the Regional Express Rail Capital Program. As many of you know, this is a $13.5 billion 10-year program which will transform how residents and goods move around the region. Municipalities across the GTHA, including the town of Aurora, have been asking for increased GO service for a long time, so now we're getting ready to deliver. Over the last year, extensions to Niagara, Kitchener, and Bowmanville have also been announced, which will increase employment and tourism opportunities to everyone connected by the GO network. There we go. You've probably seen an earlier version of these diagrams, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, and especially since I've got 10 minutes, I better keep moving here. Just as an FYI, though, these diagrams show the service planning along the corridor, with new stations and station updates, bridge widenings, electrification substations, and grade separations at Rutherford, McNaughton, and Wellington. In addition to work on the Barrie Corridor, expansion is also occurring on the Richmond Hill Corridor. The new Gormley station opened up last December, and usage is already above expectation. We're also building the new Bloomington station. It will provide Aurora commuters with another option aside from the Barrie line. Of course, we will continue to look at service and opportunities to expand as part of our future planning. We also know that this is a big infrastructure build-out with local impacts. With that in mind, we've been thinking about the best way to work with you so that you have the information you need to plan and support projects within your communities. Right now, we meet regularly with town staff on these projects. Within the next few months, we will be launching a number of other opportunities for town staff at all levels to have a dialogue about projects and work needed to deliver the program. Now we're on a regular schedule to appear before all municipal councils in the GTHA with tailored content for each municipality. So let's move into what is happening in the region and in Aurora. As I said before, there is a lot of infrastructure to build, a lot of new technology, and a lot of equipment required to achieve RER service levels. Expanding the entire GO network requires more than 150 kilometers of new track, bringing new electric trains, building new bridges and underpasses to accommodate the rail traffic, renovating the existing GO stations, and constructing new stations in other locations to bring transit closer to home. Here's a list of the infrastructure improvements we have to do on the Barrie Corridor in order to provide RER service. I won't go through them all. It's indicated there, and you'll have a presentation left with you, I'm sure. One of the largest components is building a second track, though, from Union Station to Aurora to allow for all-day, two-way, 15-minute service between Aurora and Union. That's about 30 miles of new track. We're also doing station upgrades, new stations, expanded parking, and more, all to make our customer experience that much better. There we go. So in addition to the infrastructure improvements, we continue to move forward with plans for electrification as well. In order to electrify, we need to build infrastructure including traction power substations, switching stations, paralleling stations, overhead contact systems, and various safety modifications. This includes switching stations and paralleling stations down in the Maple area and Rutherford area. Additional information will be shared with your community as we move through the TPAP process. And now on to new tracks and stations. We know that providing more GO stations closer to home is a key part of our expansion plans. I'm lucky because I live near Aurora GO station, and we want to build stations in communities that don't have one. Plans are underway for both Kirby and Mulock stations, and recently we opened the new Gormley station, as I mentioned before, and construction, again, has begun at Bloomington GO station. We also will have connection, and we are building Downsview Park GO station, which will provide York Region residents with an easy direct connection to the TTC Spadina subway when the extension opens. And we also will have connection from the Barrie corridor to the Eglinton Crosstown via the New Caledonia station that is currently under design. So what are we doing at the Aurora GO station? Well, many of you probably have seen the phase 1 where we put the 2 pedestrian tunnels underneath the tracks. This happened just before Christmas. And now we're into the second design phase of the work, which will be the new platforms, new station canopies, some surface parking, and construction is estimated to commence in about 2018, fall of 2018. And again, as I mentioned before, we just began to mobilize construction on the Bloomington Station, which is on the northeast quadrant of Highway 404 and Bloomington Road. It will provide even more options for residents living in Aurora and York Region. And here's just a couple of renderings to show what the station will look like and when it gets completed.
Mr. Spencer, I'm going to hold you for just a second.
Certainly.
Because you've got 30 seconds left, and I suspect
Okay.
you're not going Councillor Kim is going to second that. Requires 2/3. All in favor? Contrary, that's opposed. Thank you, sir. Carry on.
I carry on? Thank you. Okay, I also want to address some of the local impacts here in Aurora. Metrolinx is committed to widening Yonge Street Bridge. We're currently in the design phase of this project. We plan to install cladding that will enhance the bridge and create a gateway into the town. We're continuing discussion with the town staff about installing a Welcome to Aurora sign on the bridge. And we're also working with town and region staff on the installation of a multi-use path tunnel behind the Yonge Street Bridge abutment. I know that some of the residents have concerns about Bursey Street. We know it's important to keep the road open during and after construction. We're still really early on in the process of design of that bridge, of the Wellington grade separation. And what will happen with Bursey Street hinges on the design of the Wellington grade separation, and we haven't begun design, I'm repeating myself here, sorry, and we haven't begun design on that yet. So it's tough to know whether we can keep it open during construction, but we're committed to trying to accommodate this request. And of course, we will continue to work with town staff and look at options for keeping Bursey Street open after construction is completed. And what about parking? I can tell you that parking is one of the top concerns among customers and residents in York Region. It's definitely a challenge. Our current plan is to use the 12 Industrial Road property as replacement parking or displacement parking when the construction starts on the station platforms, which, as I said before, we're currently tracking for fall 2018. As we committed, Our Lady of Grace Church temporary parking agreement is in place, but we'll need more temporary parking once the work starts. So we'll keep working with town staff on alternative parking arrangements. We're also finalizing a parking utilization study, which is looking at parking availability in the nearby town-owned properties. The study is looking to see if there's capacity for shared use between the town and Metrolinx. And while adding parking to our stations is important, it's also important that we look to the future at long-term solutions for stations access, like working with municipalities on first mile and last mile connections, with local transit and bicycle and pedestrian access to stations. It's all part of our regular discussion with town staff. Sorry, there we go. We know that whistles is a concern, not just in Aurora, but all over the GO network. As we increase service along the Barrie corridor, we are working with municipalities as best we can. The environmental assessment will cover in detail any possible noise impacts as a result of construction and increased service. Noise from train whistles is governed by Transport Canada rules and regulations. Metrolinx is happy and will work with the town of Aurora, but we feel there needs to be a high-level discussion involving leadership from Transport Canada. Now that the station work is out of the way, I'd like to talk a bit about our plans for improving level crossings throughout the region. Getting to a manageable list of crossings to be grade separated was a lot of work. So I want to first acknowledge and thank town and regional staff for being great partners on this project. They provided valuable input as we worked through the process of figuring out which crossings need to be grade separated. To help inform our plan, Metrolinx assessed all level crossings on the Gold Rail network. We evaluated each crossing based on 4 criteria and assigned it a numerical score. Based on the assessment results, a tiered approach was adopted to inform prioritization and discussions with municipalities. We arrived at a list of 38 level crossings that are deemed Tier 1. All Tier 1 crossings are considered high priority where Metrolinx is the rail authority and where they are located within the 15-minute service envelope, thereby deriving greatest benefit. I can tell you that a grade separation is very expensive. It can cost anywhere between $50 and $150 million depending on location, complexity, and site constraints. We don't have the money to do all these grade separations right now. I wish we did, but we don't. But we will keep working with cities and towns on completing designs for each one. So when the funds become available and we have the chance to do them, at least we'll have done all of the prep work in advance. Of the 10 grade separations we plan doing right now, 4 of them are in York Region. One being Wellington Street East, which is obviously in the town. And we choose it as a high priority because it's adjacent to the station and it scored high on evaluating criteria, and it falls within that 15-minute service delivery envelope. The Wellington grade separation is still in the preliminary stages of work and design. Actually, we haven't even started. Here's the photo of what the road rail crossing looks like right now. We know this has been identified by York Region and the town as a priority. You've asked for it, we're delivering it. We know how important it is. It's a complex project, and personally, I'm concerned about 3 things: addressing the heritage elements and pedestrian connections, ensuring that the 15-minute service is facilitated, and above all, ensuring safety in the community. We need to get this one right for you and your residents. Oops, sorry. There we go, sorry. Pedestrian crossings. We've met with the town staff regarding their plan for pedestrian trails over or under the corridor. These tunnels are $4 to $5 million each, though probably more given the site constraints. We don't have it in our budget currently. Although it's always best to have infrastructure built before the corridor goes into service, it doesn't mean that these tunnels or overpasses can't be built afterwards. And as always, we are working closely with town staff on these crossings. We know they're important to you. Okay. Somehow we're out of order here. I think I've covered it. I apologize for that. All I wanted to say was with the with Wellington grade separation, there will be plenty of opportunity between now and construction to decide how to deliver this project, and you'll be right there with us on the decision making. In the coming months, we'll also be launching a GTHA region-wide community advisory committee on safety and level crossings, so your input will be critical for us there too. We look forward to working with the town as we move through the EA, design, and build stages. And now I'll turn this over to my colleague Aaron to talk about community engagement. Thank you.
Will you be able to do this fairly quickly?
Super quick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Community engagement. So we've been working closely with staff at the town. As we move through the community, I think everyone will recognize that there's a lot of work happening, and for many folks who come out to the meetings, it can be overwhelming in terms of understanding how all the pieces fit together. So to date, we just have said kind of where we've been and the meetings that we've had. Nick spoke briefly about the electrification and double track environmental assessments, and those have been the meetings that we have had to date, but we're going to be having more, especially as we move into the Wellington grade separation and some of the changes at the station. Overall, I would say that right now you are the second stop on our regional tour of trying to get in front of all councils on a regular basis. Nick also spoke to that, and I think it's very important that you have certainty and also residents have certainty about when we're going to be back in municipalities, speaking with councils, providing updates. So we are going to look at an annual schedule. We have 40 municipalities to get to, but as soon as we finish with those 40, we'll be back again in front of councils so that you have an opportunity to ask questions and receive an update directly. We are also looking at a community charter, which some folks have engaged in already. And the community charter is really about, as we start such a significant infrastructure projects, being clear with community on the commitments that we're making as Metrolinx in terms of service and what people can expect from us and the information and how they can expect interactions to go with us as we move into construction and design in their communities. Overall, I like this diagram just to show very quickly that in Metrolinx, as Nick has just gone through, we are actually in all 4 stages of a classic planning and project schedule, which most people are used to doing, I would say, in a linear fashion. So they start with planning and feasibility work. That often takes a few years. They move into an environmental assessment, design, procurement, construction. What residents and councillors will recognize is we're actually doing all 4 of those stages at the same time at different projects.
Can I ask you to wrap up quickly, please?
I will.
Thank you.
And we will be consulting through all those stages because of how they're moving. And that is it. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, motion to receive the presentation, please. Councillor Pirie, Councillor Humphreys. I've got a list of speakers. Councillor Pirie, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One concern I've heard from the public, with these lines being electrified, are there any concerns around safety of those lines arcing or electrical transmission that could harm residents?
There's an extensive engineering team that's working on the electrification aspect of this. The issues of arcing and any kind of what do they call them, EMF?
EMF.
EMF. Thank you. You have to talk to the communication person to get that
I
right.
do a lot of public
Don't talk
meetings.
to the engineering
Right.
group. So there, we don't see any risk with that. I mean, this is not a new system. These have been in place in Europe for many, many years. The systems are being mimicked from there, basically, taking all the knowledge that they've learned over the 60 or 70 or 100 years that they've been doing that over there. So,
if I could add really quickly, one thing that community have asked about is the level of current that's going to be on the wires, and they will be 25 kV, which is consistent with what currently runs into homes. The second thing that I would offer is, because on the corridor you have 2 general lines running on either side, in the basics of science, you have a positive and negative, and they cancel each other out in terms of EMF. So as opposed to a single wire, there's that additional benefit.
Councillor?
Perfect, thank you. The other question I had, we had a former councillor, John Gallo, who was very strong about pushing for a shuttle service to get to and from the GO train station. With a 15-minute a day, there is going to be impacts on parking. Have you guys contemplated a way for people to get to and from the GO train station in some capacity?
I'll take that because I do get that as well quite a bit. What I would say is that there are regulatory restrictions and legislative restrictions on Metrolinx in terms of the services we can offer within a municipal boundary. So where we run service right now is interregional, right, across municipal boundaries. And so shuttle services are complicated, I would say. There's been very specific and limited instances where we've offered them during construction or something in the past, but it's definitely something our planning department is looking at, along with our transit authority counterparts.
Councillor?
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you coming tonight. It certainly was very informative. It's always important for us to understand what's coming up in the future for Aurora. Similar to, along the lines of Councillor Peary's, you made reference to that, first mile, last mile, and to me that is the importance of getting people to and from the station. And I recognize that there are some challenges with regulatory issues, but are there other ideas that Metrolinx exploring in terms of, interagency cooperations, looking at things like ride sharing or, other, ideas to help get people to and from?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely, Councillor. The planning department has a full suite of things that they're looking at, whether it's microbusing, carpooling. That we're looking at even the Uber kind of things that will work. We're definitely working with YRTC, York Region, and Viva to see if there is better connectivity. We're looking at the full slate of things to implement, because obviously with the growth in the community, you just can't keep providing parking ad nauseum, right?
My second question, I found it interesting that you started off the presentation with a slide that said gridlock costs our economy. You talked about, the commute times, that on average it's 80 minutes, and it's so important in us to invest in this infrastructure to get cars off the road, to address these issues. So I'm sure you're aware of it. We have a motion on the table tonight to talk about the closure of York GO Station. So if we're trying to, rid ourselves of gridlock, if we're trying to improve commute times, why are we closing the station at York University?
Well, let me start by saying, first of all, there has not been a decision on whether we're closing York University or not. But in the meantime, we're also building the Downsview Park Station, which will be another transfer point should that decision be made for the York University students and people using the line to get onto the subway or get into the university. But right now, there's been no decision made to close it.
Final comment, I'm glad to hear there's been no decision, so that means that our conversation tonight will have some value. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Actually, I have some concerns. There's rising costs of hydro, and we hear it all the time. So I'm just wondering, has there been a cost analysis done as far as what the costs will be moving from a regular diesel engine to an electrified service?
So as part of the electrification EA, there has been that cost analysis. I don't have off the top of my head that information, but I can definitely get it for you and submit it formally to council for your information.
Thank you. I think that'd be some good information. And just kind of to touch on slightly to what Councillor Thompson was mentioning and saying, and I heard that a decision hasn't been made on that one. It kind of brings me back to, you were talking about Bursey Street, and that a decision hasn't been made whether it will even be there when the construction's done or whether it won't. And so I'm just wondering, has there been any talk with the homeowners, the businesses running along Bursey Street? Because I think that's something important for our residents to know, that there could be a possibility that street might not exist.
Yeah. It's a great point. The only reason why we haven't moved to start contacting property owners is that we haven't gotten anywhere near enough design to look at what we actually need to take, or maybe not take at all. So we're very reluctant until we get some solid design work in place that allows us to take a look at what the options are before we just start knocking on people's doors and creating a problem where there might not be one.
If I could add just quickly, the grade separation report was just approved by our board in January. So that list of 10 that you saw was just formally approved on our side, and that's the ability for Nick to start the formal process of design and feasibility around the grade separations. So to your point, of course, that's a significant impact, and there will be extensive outreach and consultation as that process moves forward.
Councillor?
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, so I'd like to hope that this town will have a strong say in whatever those options are, considering it will actually change. In essence, it's close to the very heart of our town. So I'd like to think that we as a council and as a community will have a very strong say in what happens in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for coming out. And I'm pretty excited myself about the all-day train usage because I take the GO train every day, so it'll certainly impact me. Now, given, I think Councillor Marcus talked about electrification, and given that electrification is paramount to this project, and given that our provincial government has decreased hydro prices by 25%, does that mean ticket prices go down accordingly, or?
I definitely like the lead-in. What I will say is that what has also gone to our board and been shared with municipal counterparts and transit agencies is a fare integration conversation. And part of that fare integration study, which is also being done by our planning department, and I can get you more information, is looking at the exact question of fares, things like co-fares. So right now we have a co-fare with York Region Transit when you transfer, and how that all works going forward when we have one integrated rapid transit network where we do want to encourage people crossing boundaries, right? Multiple boundaries. So there is an entire table dedicated to exactly that question and what the fare should be, and then also what they refer to as concessions. Every municipality has a different definition of senior, student, things that impact residents, and that's a very important conversation that will also be a public one.
Councillor?
Thank you. And you had mentioned in your presentation that there are about 150 or so grade separation areas that have been identified, and that it doesn't necessarily have to happen prior to the commencement of all-day service. So does that mean that that we could potentially have at surface level traffic halting every 15 minutes? Is that what will happen if it's not built prior to commencement?
We will always, in the foreseeable future, have some at-level crossings in our network. The 150 is also looking at private crossings, so we have a number of rural crossings in our network where there are private roads that are across existing tracks. So what we did through that process was prioritize where there's high volumes of both pedestrian and vehicular traffic, but Metrolinx is very clear that there will probably always be at-grade crossings, and another part of the long-term plan is to look at how we improve those remaining crossings. So federal regulations were just changed for all crossings, and we have a 7-year program as well through our operations side that is looking at ways to improve all level crossings, both for traffic and for pedestrians across the network.
Councillor?
And you had also stated that you couldn't confirm the numbers of grade separations because the funding hasn't been identified or confirmed yet. For myself, when I do a home reno or something of that nature, I make sure that funding is available. So is there a possibility that should there not be any provincial or federal funding, and we know they do want to go on a deficit, and so if they're going to go on a deficit, it'd be nice to have that deficit come to serve the grade separations. I guess my question is, so there's a possibility that we may not even have funding for 2/3 or even 100% of the needed grade separations?
So So I would just clarify that the 10 priority grade separations that have been identified, all are funded. So if you look at the initial business case that was done for Regional Express Rail, what it assumed in that was that the maximum number of grade separations a single corridor could handle with operating service was about a maximum of 3 per corridor. And so funding was allocated based on that, so that there was a budget for about 3 per corridor, which is why we're at 10. Sometimes, as Nick has said, there's quite a variable scale in terms of cost of a grade separation, so there was some adjustment in there in terms of the grade separations that were chosen, but those 10 are fully funded. What we have said, because we know municipalities also have priorities, and there are other high-ranking priorities throughout the network, is that we want to continue working with municipalities so that when additional capital funding becomes available, RER is just one program. Even in terms of what we're working on, it's separate from our LRTs, from our BRT funding. So as additional funding becomes available, we want those projects to be ready and to be available for funding so that we can get through as many of them as possible.
Just last question. I think everyone wants to know, what are the timelines? Where's the pin on the commencement? Are we looking at 2 to 3 years from now, or is it beyond 5 years?
Specifically.
2026.
That's, if 15-minute service would probably be after the electrification, so we're looking at a 2025 year timeline. Yeah.
Years or so?
Service.
Yes.
We already introduced on the Barrie line the weekend service, right, this January. And so what the RER program also commits to is incremental service increases to get us up to that 15 minutes. So it's not nothing additional and then 15 minute. We're going to work our way up to the 15 minute, and we've already started that increase.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mayor Dowling. Thank you very much for President. You talked about the weekend service that's commencing soon. Can you tell us the time and how we can find out those schedules? Are they posted?
So it started past January. It was announced, so we can get you those schedules, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to the York University, you're calling for feedback on whether you're going to close that or not. Looking down the road, when you have 15-minute service, there'll be a GO train going there every 15 minutes and stopping, or possibly stopping there as well, because right now it exists only in the morning and the afternoon rush hours. So students that only have 1 or 2 classes either stay all day or get an alternate route home. So is that some of the factoring what you're having in mind when you're going to link it up to the Downsview GO station so that that is basically accommodated? Is that the method of thinking?
Say as planning is working with our TTC counterparts on what all of those options look like. But Nick, and maybe I'll turn it over to you, the reason why we're even having this conversation to begin with is there are some constraints of the site. So those were looked at during the double tracking EA, and Nick, maybe you can give some technical detail.
For sure. I mean, it's just a matter of actual space to allow for the double track and for double platforms. There is certainly an issue there that we would have to deal with if the decision is to keep it open. So it's a big challenge.
That there's financial implications looking down the road as to how you're going to look at this project and consideration?
There's definitely technical challenges. And if you look at the site itself, you have buildings that are right up against the track in that area, and that's where you're getting the constraint to add additional platforms and pedestrian access, et cetera. So it is a challenging site. That doesn't mean there aren't other options, and that's why the planning department is looking at it. But from a pure technical corridor build point of view, there are definitely some things that need to be further examined.
If I could ask, how far away it doesn't go into the York University, whereas the subway station does go into the York University. So there's a shuttle that goes. Can you give us an idea? You're in an industrial complex, and are you a kilometer or 2 away, sort of idea?
I want to say it's a 5-minute shuttle.
Yeah, it's about a 5-minute shuttle ride. It's in the station stop. The corridor obviously runs its course, and it stops within an industrial area there. Yes.
I'm not really paying attention. And the underpasses, I briefly talked to you about that before, but I'll just bring it up, that we have a master trails plan, and what Cousins was one that we identified. We actually put in a design to discuss with GO. Like, we're committed, and that's well known. So if you are ripping up and doing construction, the thought is while you're there doing this, it would save a lot of money to consider putting an underpass there, especially because you can't change the habits of our town, because half of it lives here and half of it lives there, and they cross it, they have for decades. And if it's electrified, this is something that we would really want you to prioritize in our mind going forward. And just a word on the shuttle. I had put a notice of motion forward in November of 2015, and I don't know if I'm confusing with Councillor Perry, but it was about a GO shuttle, and it went to the transportation at York Region, and it was adopted. And we had a wholesome talk with Metrolinx about a project you had done at Milton, and how it had worked there, temporary, that you had done, and we're trying to move that into adopting with York Region. So York Region is now dealing with it, and they might have to right-size a fleet or something like that, but I think they're going to be in constant contact, and our mayor is on the transportation at the region, so it is so slowly moving, and a lot of information has been taken, so, and I would say that you are involved in those conversations.
Was that the Milton basically rationalization pickup model? So we have a pilot there right now, which is the Uber type platform. Is that okay?
To clarify, they did it for a one-year trial with the Milton Transit. I talked to the transit there. They said it's the way of the future. It impacts, people buy into it, and it really saves a lot of parking spaces and congestion for our local residents, and that's what it is that last mile, first mile, our local residents, if there's a little shuttle moving quickly and dedicated with an Uber app, and that's exactly what the region's looking at. Thank you.
Pathway. Metrolinx overall has an active transportation plan. Some of the town staff may have worked with their planning department on that, but also as capital projects move forward and we look at public realm opportunities, Nick had said we're open to that discussion. In our world, we call it Rails with Trails, and you'll find many references to that in other parts of North America, but definitely something we're interested in discussing. Yeah.
Councillor Humphreys, please. Then I'll come to you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm trying not to be repetitive. Many of my questions have been answered tonight. But one of the things that Councillor Abel touched on is we have a very powerful trails and active transportation master plan. It's very important to us. It means a lot to us. So from that perspective, grade crossings are really imperative for us, that our community can walk anywhere, east, south, north, west. Very, very, very important. And we're going to really hope that we can work closely together, get some funding to get those built along the way. I know you have those challenges probably with other municipalities, but we're rather passionate here in keeping as much as possible to adhere to that plan. So for me, that's what I'll be looking for very much as we evolve further with the great services that are going to come about.
And it definitely helps when we work with municipalities that have master plans. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Just quickly, you touched on it a little bit with regards to the York Station in terms of technical challenges, some of the constraints, but I guess it would be fair to say that with any rail expansion program of this magnitude, there must be many areas that there are some technical challenges or constraints, and that's part of the process. Would that be fair?
Absolutely, Councillor, yes.
And so just bringing it back to Aurora, when we look at, the expansion and the double tracking and so forth, I'm sure there are other areas within Aurora that either there's expropriation necessary or there may be some technical challenges or constraints that you're currently dealing with it, be it, south of Wellington or looking into the future if you ever proceed north of Wellington there as well. Have you communicated those kind of challenges with the planning staff here, as well as identified what properties you may or may not need to expropriate in order to achieve double tracking?
Well, the plan is being developed and it's coming to fruition now. We're getting it at a very finalized and completed stage on the double tracking part, and that's where all of the property is being identified. We have a constant biweekly dialogue with town staff. Again, we haven't reached out to people per se specifically with regard to the real estate, because we're still figuring a lot of that out, but it's time is coming, so we will do that.
And if I could add, we're just getting into the formal notice of commencement period of the environmental assessment, and as per process, it wouldn't be
That's right.
appropriate for us to reach out to any homeowners or property owners until we have approval from the Minister of Environment and Climate Change on that environmental assessment proposal.
Appreciate that, and it's been said a few times to just continue to encourage that dialogue and that mutual cooperation as we move forward with building the community.
Councilor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Humphreys mentioned about the underpasses and how important it is to this town and our Trails Committee, and so just I also sit on that committee with Councillor Humphreys, and we do have 9 identified areas that would be suitable for underpasses, but there's 3 that are of the utmost importance, I think, to this town, and that we've identified that are crucial and that we actually need to get done. And so my question to you is that is there even funding available? And if there is it even a consideration to help fund these 3 underpasses? Or are you guys going to leave it up to the municipality?
So, and I'll turn it over to Nick in a second, but what I would say is Nick, as corridor director, has been given a budget built on the infrastructure that he's required to build for the Barrie Corridor. As additional requests come in, as monies are spent and projects are costed more specifically as opposed to a general costing, there is an opportunity for us to bring that back and see if there's an opportunity and there's some funding that could go towards that. So to be fair to Nick, and when town staff meets with his staff, which is the bi-weekly meetings, it is completely fair to say that it's not in the project budget. That does not mean that that's not something that Nick as corridor director can't take back and see if there's additional opportunity.
Councilor?
Thank you. I guess there's still an opportunity, so we'll press hard, and I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope for the best for us. But I'll let you know that I'm sure our staff and our council and our residents are going to be very vocal about getting funding for those underpasses. So thank you for your time, and thanks for coming out.
That's it for questions from councillors. I want to thank you very much for coming out. You can tell that this is obviously of significant interest to our community, and I think it also helps us get a better sense of the complexity of this project. And it's certainly a very long-term and obviously a very expensive project. So we do thank you for taking the time to come and visit with us, and we look forward to those regular updates so that we can also keep our residents informed. Council, just a vote on the reception of the presentation, please. All in favor? That's opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson, did you want to? I don't think it'll take long.
I'd like to bring forward a motion that we waive procedural bylaw to allow the notice of motion regarding the GO station to come forward, so that those in the audience and Metrolinx can hear the debate.
Just a sec. We haven't passed it. A second? Councillor Humphreys? It's waiver procedural bylaw to bring Councillor Thompson's motion forward. Councillor Prieur?
Just be quick, don't we have delegations on this matter?
We also have a number of people in the audience.
Not on this matter, no.
Not
okay.
on this one. Okay. In that case, calling the vote on the waiver of procedural bylaw. All in favor? Contrary? That's carried. Councillor Maracus, you're going to step away from the table. Councillor Thompson? Oh, we need a motion now to bring it forward. We're nothing if we're not procedural. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Second, please. Councillor Abel, you okay to second that? Thank you. All in favor of bringing that forward? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just wait a second until the motion gets put on the screen. I won't I won't read out all of the whereases. Sorry.
You're moving it, I
Oh, sorry, I'll
presume.
move the motion.
Second, Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Back to you, sir.
You know, I won't read out all the whereases. I'll assume that members of council have done that. But I think, you know, it's important to note that, you know, this station has a long history of serving the area. You know, I reference it to being over the last 14 years. It serves as a vital hub for not just York University, but you know, my understanding in talking to residents is that it's also a, you know, a jumping off point to go to Brampton and other municipalities as well. And certainly, you know, we all see the tremendous growth. And, you know, I alluded to it in the conversation with Metrolinx is that, you know, we're all investing resources and energy and dollars into alternative modes of transportation to reduce gridlock, reduce the commute. And for me, it just doesn't make sense for us to close the station when, you know, we've seen the growth here, not just in Aurora, but in York University in general. And just even on a side note, you know, I look at my daughter who attends university, but she's still at home. And there are housing problems as well. And I think as a growing trend, you'll see going forward that perhaps more and more university students choose to live at home and commute to school. And so it makes even more sense for us to, you know, approach Metrolinx and try and get them to reconsider the discussions going around the closure of this station. I think that, again, going back to the basic tenet that we want to continue to try and promote alternative modes of transportation, I think it's in the residents' best interest and ours that we approach Metrolinx and get them to keep the station open.
Sir. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to clarify that, and perhaps I should have done it before, but Councillor Marakis excused himself for pecuniary interest, but he said that I alleged that and I never alleged, I merely texted him.
Point of order.
Councillor.
To this motion, he can deal with that under new business.
Okay. Councillor Abel.
So I just wanted to say that I did not allege. Thank you. Well, I agree with the idea that we should be commuting and encouraging public transit and making and availing commuting for our students, especially in our areas, and we all feel the same way in communities. And I have really no issue. And I am full support of doing that. I know someone very close that could not find transportation, public transportation to the Seneca College in King. And that's just a bus stop. So I know how important it is that we allow that transportation to facilitate higher educations. And just because we are sending this around to MPP's office and regional council and York University, I just wanted to make sure we got the wording right. And it says in the first one that we were requesting that it not close the York University, and I think that's not correct. I think what they are doing is we would support that it continue open because they're asking for it, but factually, Metrolinx has not indicated that they're closing it. So I think if we're going to be public and send this around, we might as well be factually correct. It's minor, but could I suggest a friendly amendment to it that, or perhaps Councillor Thompson would like to consider it, that requesting that the York University GO station remain active, or something along those lines, because, well, it's a bit embarrassing that we've heard from our Metrolinx representatives, they're not closing it. It reminds me of what happened at our service agreement with the cultural center, where some thought we were going to close the cultural center. We were just amending and working out a new service agreement, and I think it's important that we be correct. We are not requesting, well, it's not closing, so I have a problem with that. Otherwise, I'm in support of maintaining commuting privileges, or not privileges, but commuting for our residents and other residents in the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Couple things. First, the clerk did approach me when I first put in this motion, asking me to reframe it in a more positive light, and I had declined to do it at that time because I thought I would mirror the exact same motion that the City of Toronto passed and the City of Barrie passed. Both said it in the same wording. And so, with all due respect to Councillor Abel, it is factually correct, unless he has an issue with the City of Toronto and the City of Barrie as well. I invite him to go to the York University website, which has a long page on the whole GO train station and the potential closure of York University, where it's talking about that they may not have been officially told that it is closing, but they are the belief that it is closing. So my facts come from York University, as well as the other municipalities that have moved forward with this, especially the City of Toronto. So I'm not sure where Councillor Abel's getting his research from, but I would encourage him to visit these sites so that he could be factually correct.
Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From my perspective, I like the motion as it reads. It duplicates the other municipalities and cities, and it does just start off with Metrolinx is discussing the potential closure. And I think I heard that this evening from our delegates. No decision has been made, but I want to be clear that we support the continuation of leaving the stop open.
Thank you. Councillor, I'm going to go to Councillor Kim for first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too agree that the verbiage is not really materially it's not really materially sufficient enough for me to be on side with Councillor Abel. So I'm fine with the original motion as reads. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having completed my semester abroad at York University, I think it was a vitally used transit stop for a lot of students who are attending. So I fully in support of this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to respond, I do not ever want to appear in non-factual. I'm just going by what was said by our presentation, and that it has not been closed. And then Councillor Thompson and Councillor Humphreys both used the word potentially closure. So I'm fine with the meaning and the clarification, and I will support requesting that it not close or potentially not close. It's neither here nor there, and I agree with that statement. I just thought I would put that in, and so I will support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please? Councillor Thompson? No.
Thank you. For those that perhaps couldn't participate in the discussion or who'd like to continue to advocate for the station. I know that there is a petition that's been set up. I would encourage residents or those that are interested in the issue to go to the York University website. You can find some links to that petition. Again, we are encouraging that the letter be sent to our local MPPs, Regional Council, York University, and all municipalities within York Region. But some of the emails I got with respect to support for this motion came from Bradford, came from other municipalities outside the York Region, and so perhaps I could just add a piece that it also be sent to all municipalities along the Barrie corridor.
You okay with that? Okay.
Thank you.
If there's no other speakers, then I'll call the vote. All in favor, Councillor
Recorded
Thompson?
vote.
Recorded vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a recorded vote on motion C, Councillor Thompson, regarding York University GO train station. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Thompson? Yes. Councillor Thompson votes yes. Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Councillor sorry, my mistake. Mayor Daw votes yes. Councillor Abel?
I vote yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. Councillor Peary? Councillor Perry votes yes. Councillor Humphreys? Yes. Councillor Humphrey votes yes. That carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That concludes the Metrolinx part. So anybody here for the Metrolinx part?
The first delegation is Metrolinx.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. The first delegation is Metro. Thank you, Mr. CAO. I appreciate that. Well, it almost concludes the Metrolinx stuff. Okay, we will move into delegations. We do have 5 delegations. Most of you have delegated before, some haven't, so I'll just quickly, the process for delegation, you have 5 minutes, at which point councillors may elect to ask questions. You will get a warning at 4.5 minutes, and I will ask you to wrap up at 5. All right? So our first up is Mr. Wernberg, and there is a clock actually on the podium. So Mr. Wernberg, and I will also ask us to give us your name and your address. Thank you.
Okay. Klaus Wernberg, live at 16 Cedar Crescent in Aurora. I had a 9-minute presentation. I'm not going to ask you to extend the time in view of what I've heard so far. The presentation was informative enough. I will summarize what I meant to present so we can go on from there. I'd like to point out in the beginning that Aurora is strongly pro-trails, and I don't know what's happening here. And I'm here because of Trails Matters, so I'm going to take my hearing aid out, first of all. In Aurora, we have had a survey where we have asked the households to let us know what recreational facilities they would like to prefer, and I would like to point out that 86% have walking or hiking for leisure at the top of recreational activities. There also was another survey where we asked them to rate infrastructure costs and so on, like which one they would want to pay for at the top. And the nature trails and paved motor-use trails were favored by 47% of the population, way up ahead of anything else. On top of that, we have asked our citizens who have used sidewalks whether they would use trails as an alternative if they were available. And 97% have said they would prefer to walk on trails rather than sidewalks. So I'd just like to point out there's a high favoritism of trails infrastructure in this town. And that is the background against which I'm presenting this. Metrolinx has decided basically not to spend money on grade separated trail crossings so far. That came out of public meetings, and it has come out of the current report on level crossing strategy that was referred to earlier. It was prepared in February. So they would like to spend, they are spending money on vehicular traffic. That is their priority, but no funding has been appropriated for the other type of level, grade separated and level crossings for the non-vehicular traffic. That, I feel, is a little bit of discrimination, and it's also very much not in tune with having the infrastructure that is supportive of sustainable transportation. The vision for the Metrolinx, when they first established themselves, included one of championing the trails or pedestrian walking and cycling form of transportation, mode of transportation. They have not carried through with that. And there is no prospect of them carrying through with that in view of what we have heard so far and what the documents say. I'm obviously not favoring that. We have an Aurora Trails master plan that sets out where our trails crossing should be of the train tracks. When we double the train tracks and we have trains running every 15 minutes, we're talking about 7.5 minutes average when the trains are coming through, and we're talking about double the tracks, and it's obviously not going to be the safest thing any longer to be
30 seconds, Mr. Wormer.
crossing tracks level without some infrastructure improvements. So basically, we can't go on having 2-kilometer stretches in town where we can't get across the tracks and then feign to want to be the most active community in Canada. We can't have the barriers that we have currently, 2 kilometers
Mr. Wernberg,
in the north end.
Can you wrap up, please? You have 5 minutes.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Can you wrap up, please?
Wrap up?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yes.
How did that happen? Okay, basically the 2.8 kilometers in the longest stretch.
Your time is up, sir.
2 kilometers, the other stretches.
Okay. Can I please have a motion to receive Mr. Wernberg's delegation?
I'm off.
You're off. Councillor Kim? Councillor Perry, to receive? Any comments or questions for Mr. Wernberg, please? Councillor Humphries.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor. You can hear? Mr. Weinberger, can you hear? It's me. Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your delegation. Klaus, you can hear me? No. Okay. That's okay. I wanted to just thank you for coming this evening, and obviously your passion shows for keeping, to our, trails and transportation master plan act, and it's very important to us that we maintain the integrity of that. And I understood your point of keeping connectivity in the stretch of our town from east to west to be able to connect through trails and walk. If we don't do the underpasses as planned, we will be a town severed. So it's very, very important that we stick to the plan, and we hope that we have some funding through Metrolinx to continue to do what we need to do. So I wanted to just appreciate you coming tonight, and I hope you heard that.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Any other speakers? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. Klaus, have you had an opportunity to speak with the representatives from Metrolinx?
Spoken to other representatives at the public meetings. And one of the clear answers I got from them is that our priority is vehicular traffic, and that there's no timeline for council to have to decide by when they want a decision on the non-vehicular traffic, basically.
Thank you, Klaus. I'll be brief because I know that, Klaus, you weren't able to finish tonight. I would hope that the representatives from Metrolinx here tonight can take a little bit of extra time to speak with you afterwards, just so that you can continue the discussion. And I'm seeing heads nodding.
Quickly, please.
Very quickly, I would like to see a more transparent process in dealings with Metrolinx. I would like to see a committee formed by council to be able to get citizens involved in this matter so we can get feedback and reports and agendas and minutes and so on. We are not having any of that right now. Everything is secretive. I don't know what's going on. And there's so many people involved at the Metrolinx side, you don't know who to turn to. I've written letters, received letters back.
They're right there.
And they're brush off, basically.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you, Mr. Wernberg, for championing our trails and parks and master plan all these years. Thank you.
Any others? All in favor of receipt then, please. Opposed? That is carried. Yeah, leave that with Linda. Thank you, Mr. Wernberg. Mr. Chappell. remind you, sir, you have 5 minutes, so get a warning at 4.5. If you could give us your name and your address, please.
Reg Chappell, Vice President, Sport Aurora, President, Duck Swimming. Mayor, members of council, most of our current sport facilities are at capacity. Population growth in Aurora is ahead of past planning expectations. Demand for sport facilities is increasing. When a family is looking for a place to live, schooling and sports are at the top of their list. Across Canada, activity levels are increasing as we address our health requirements. If we want to promote ourselves as an attractive community, then we must address these needs. If Aurora is to become the most active community in Canada, we need facilities. 2003 Culture and Recreation Master Plan included a list of additional facilities required for a population of 69,000. It is now predicted that we'll reach a population of 75,000. The current master plan and sport plan have recommended facilities are needed. The town has on its books from the master plan to address the building of a facility in 2019. Tonight, the Parks and Recreation and Cultural Committee will be bringing a motion to move discussions of a new multi-purpose sport facility forward. Sport Aurora would like to show support for this motion and suggest we begin discussions immediately, as we are currently in arrears with an increasing demand that is growing exponentially. A suggestion: at this stage, there's no need to hire a consultant, which means there's no cost to the town. There is a pool of knowledgeable and experienced individuals within the membership of the 41 organizations that make up Sport Aurora. They have direct access and can get immediate input from their members. Their members make up the majority of citizens of this community. We would suggest that the Director of Parks and Recreation and Culture, Mr. Al Downey, who's had extensive experience, host meetings of ice, field, gym, and pool partners. Note that I use the word partners, as we are all in this together to build a multi-purpose sport facility that we can all use at a price we can afford in order to build a better community. Recommendations from this group would then be brought back to Council for further discussion and direction. In summary, the demand is substantial, and fields, ice, gyms, and pool partners have their backs to the wall fighting for facility time in order to grow, and this leaves no room for new programs. Exactly what is needed needs to be discussed, as a grow out of this community is coming quickly. There will need to be a compromise which the partners could also address. We are already in arrears. Demand is increasing exponentially as population grows. Time is of the essence, and this will be the last sport facility we build. Where we put the new facility is a secondary question based on need and land availability. We would encourage your approval of the motion and begin discussions post-haste. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I please have a motion to receive and refer the presentation? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Kim, second. Comments or questions for Mr. Chappell, please? Councillor Abel, if you could press your button. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Forgot to press my button. Thank you very much for delegating. So we have the I just want to be clear. We have the recommendations from the Parks and Recreation Committee, from the Advisory Committee from February 16th. You made a referral that under new business, staff be directed to investigate current and future needs of facility development. Thank you very much.
Say two.
Say two.
Councillors Kim and Thompson. Councillor Kim, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chappell, for presenting. Do you know if, amongst all the Sport Aurora membership, which activity, in terms of prioritization, which activity is high up there in terms of a needs basis?
2014, Sport Aurora did a survey of all of the sports, and I have that survey here, and pretty much fields, ice, pool, and gyms are needed at the current time. And we are currently have asked for a renewal of that survey. Part of those survey results are in. We will have a full set of surveys from our members of what their needs are for the first meeting.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Reg, for coming tonight. As close before you, we all know he has such a passion for trails. We know your passion for facilities and making sure we meet the needs of all the residents. So appreciate you and everybody from Sport Aurora and their work, and look forward to working with you.
If there's no other comments, I will ask for a vote. All in favor of receive and refer? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you coming out, as always. Okay, we'll now go into the list of extra delegates, please. And get that. Mr. Taylor, Taylor Designs. So again, to remind you, sir, if you could give us your name, your address, and I'll give you the warning at 4.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Kent Taylor of Taylor Design Group. I'm just here representing my client tonight. We have received the minutes and recommendations from the Heritage Advisory Committee regarding our application to remove my client's property from the heritage list from the town. We support the recommendations in the minutes. I'm here tonight to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
At this point, I'll ask for a motion to receive and refer, please. Councillor Thompson, thank you. Councillor Perry, second. Any comments or questions for the delegate on this item? Councillor Abel, sorry. I forget the look.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And just so we're all on the same page, Mr. Taylor, what address are we talking? I'm looking at 3 addresses here. And I want to thank you for making your delegation brief.
It's 14574 Leslie Street.
Councillor?
I guess there's more than one set of minutes here. February 13th. I got it. Here it is right here. Thank you very much. Okay.
Is there anything else for the delegate? Seeing nothing, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Lepp with respect to item R2. If you could give us your name and address, sir, when you get to the microphone. As with the others, I'll give you the warning at 4.5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Bob Lepp. Address is 227 Orchard Heights Boulevard. I had a presentation set up, and I'm not sure. There we go. And this is the clicker, and I'm learning on the go, so someone's going to have to help me with the next page, previous page. This one? This is the next page? Okay. I've been shunned by the town. I'm not a user of other parks. I only use the dog parks. Dog parks are for people who need to exercise and socialize their dogs. Some people see them as a toilet for dogs, but they're not. I'm pushing, but it's not moving. Oh, there we go. Oh. Aurora has a fortunate past. We're rich. 20,000 of us vote, and we own 12,000 pets. Population is about 60,000. 20,000 homes. 1 in 3 homes has a dog. Another 1 in 3 has a cat. So there are a good 13,000 pets in town and 20,000 voting pet owners for those who care. I'm clicking. Does it have to be a certain place? Okay. You are also very fortunate. Your income probably exceeds the $130,000 average. You have a job, a family, club, hobbies, you play pickleball, you have a social life. Would you volunteer to pick up dog poop? I very much doubt it. In general, dog owners prefer to pick up their own poop. The park design is broken. The idea that you can take a full list of volunteers and run a park has failed 3 times. There's been 3 cycles. We're at the end of another cycle. What we have now, we have fence and ground cover that are injuring dogs. The fence is useless. There are 25 or more breeds that escape right through the fence without stopping. Pet licensing is failing. I'm sorry, this is, there's the delay. Pet licensing is also failing. There's $200,000 missing from 2016, about the same from 2017. Annually, about 15% of dogs pay up and probably 0% of cats. And yet we do not issue very much. We rarely issue the $305 bylaw fines that are meant to be deterrents to people. Outgoing to the OSPCA, we pay $62 per dog per year for the OSPCA. This year you gave them $7 more per dog for the year for every dog living in Aurora. The income from dogs and tags and fines is $6 per dog, so you're out $56 before you even begin. The first cycle of failure at the park started in 2004 with the park opening. I'm sorry, I hope I get an extra 20 seconds. Can somebody tell me where they want the pointer to be when you click? Are you able to advance? Okay. It was originated by a Citizen X. I'm not allowed to give you his name, but he did all the work, got it going. And the question today the question I asked him was, what did you think about the attitude of the town towards the dog park? And without prompting, he said, I got the attitude they never wanted an off-leash dog park to begin with. And that's exactly the feeling I have today. Click. First cycle started in 2004, the park opened. It didn't take long before newspaper articles about the entrance being a mud hole came around. Volunteers gave up. June 2007, you advertised for volunteers. In July, you threatened to close it. And in October, the council said advertise again. A lead volunteer came forward without any contract. And she's worked faithfully for 10 years.
30 seconds, Mr. Lepp.
Yeah. It won't work with a volunteer group. It won't work with professional dog walkers being the only people that are interested in running the dog park. You need the town to run the park. We deserve it. We pay the taxes for it. We're rich enough. We're the 8th richest town in Aurora. All of our neighboring towns have one or more beautiful dog parks, and we have something that you'd be embarrassed to take your dog to.
Could you wrap up, please?
Yep, I'd be happy to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lepp. Appreciate you coming out.
You're welcome.
Council, may I have a first? Oh, don't go away. There might be some questions. Council, may I please have a motion to receive and refer to the item? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Maracas, thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Lepp, please? Seeing none, I will ask all in favor. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lepp. Appreciate you coming up. Our last delegate tonight is Ms. Helen Clark with respect to the Parks and Rec, item R2.
I'm Helen Clark, and my address is 99 Delate Avenue, and I'm here to talk about the meetings that happened back in February and the motions put forward to make our park better. And I know that now we have the support of council and the support of parks to make our park better. We're very passionate as dog owners and people who care for our dogs to have a beautiful place to go. And on Mr. Lepp's point about being embarrassed to go there, we're not. Most of our we have a lot of users from the town of Aurora, but there are nearby towns that come as well because they see our dog park as nicer than theirs. Yes, we have issues with our park. It can be made much better than what we have. We have a fence that is 14 years old now, and it is in need of some improvements. We have wood chips that, like Bob brought a sample. Yes, we do need to kind of move these out, and I think with the support of council and the town, we will have a nicer park, but I think the volunteers are vital to that process as well. The volunteers save the town probably, I think the last thing I saw was somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 a year. We keep the park clean. We take the garbage out to the curb every week. We have planted trees. We have cut the grass. We've cut back some of the trees. We've done some stuff with the picnic benches and other areas to make the park more accessible. We do have work to do as far as the accessible. And like I said, we do have work to do, and I think with your support and some of the motions that were put forward from the last meeting, that I think we will have a park that we will all love and have more people use. I don't know about Bob's facts. I don't know where he got his facts from. But I would say that our park is definitely growing as far as how many people are going, and I can tell you that because we put out weekly 7 bins, and we figure that there's probably somewhere between 400 and 600 poops in each one of those bins. And if you figure 7 bins a week is once a day, so you've got 700 dogs visiting that park every day. We have a parking lot. It needs work. The parking lot for other dog parks is hazardous. Some people have to cross a road and bring their dogs across a road. We don't, which is one of the advantages to our park. I love our park, and I've worked hard with our park. I've worked hard with Al Downey and the parks team. Do we have more work to do? Yes, we do. Would it be helpful to us to actually have a maintenance schedule? Yes, it would. And I think these are all things that were brought forward, and I think that with that little bit of work, and maybe, kind of over time, looking at how much money, because I'm conscientious of spending taxpayers' money on doing things. We have a space, we use our space, we love our space, and we would like to make our space better. And again, whatever money we put into it, and we haven't really put a lot of money into it in the last 14 or 15 years, and so we're due to put a little bit of money in. But as a group, dog owners generally are more laid back than other people, and we really we really appreciate the space. We like the space to run our dogs. And would we like it clean? Yes, we would. Would we like a nice parking lot? Yes, we would. Would we like lighting? Yes, we would. Would we like water? Yes, we would. But we are also well aware of budget constraints, and if we can put a little bit of money in over time, over the next number of years, we will have a beautiful park. Our population has grown and changed since the 2004 timeframe, I think Bob put up there when it was first opened. Dog parks have become a vital part of all communities. So Toronto has many, many dog parks. Markham has dog parks. Newmarket has dog parks. And now it's where do we put our dog park on that list? Is our dog park going to be at the top of the list, or are we going to be in the middle of the list, or are we going to sit at the bottom of the list? And that's completely up to council and what council wants to do with the dog park. And that's it. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clark.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. May I have a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson. Thank you. Councillors Abel, Kim, Humphreys, Maracas.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. I'm sorry I didn't say hi to you before. I missed you sitting there. Thank you all for coming. First of all, I want to tell you I appreciated you taking the time with Harold and coming to let me tour with you. I was, considering it was spring, I was amazed at the lack of mud and how clean it was. And you showed me some of the spots in the fences, and you did say it's a great space, very clean is what I'm thinking. And we kind of went through a number of items that were there, and the one thing that caught me right away, because there's a budget presented in the staff report, but it's not borne out on our agenda here, so those in Parks and Rec will know. One of the things here it does say in our agenda is that you are looking for a paving, a parking lot, and replacement of fencing and gate. So we had a conversation, and of course it's a lot of money for the asphalt parking, and we started talking about solutions. Rather than asphalt and a storm sewer, something permeable to get, really it's just the gray dust that is the issue. So if there was something, stones or anything along those lines, pavers or something, you could use a great saving and take that off that list right away. That's not asphalt, is not what you want. Something done, yes. Is there something a lot less money? Yes, likely is. And then perhaps with that extra money, some of the small things that you identified, like latches on the gates, water, some trees. The trees you have are, I think it's really nice that someone have it, but knowing a little bit about trees, a sapling is probably going to really struggle in a dog park environment if people get my drift. However, we have a nursery, a town nursery, and it would be nothing to put a more established tree there and get your shaded areas that you want. I'm going to suggest that you be more involved in saying, if we give you a budget amount, to come up with all the things you'd like to bring before council or the Parks and Rec Committee for approval to go forward, rather than start at an asphalt and saying we need 150 grand. So those are some of my thoughts, and again, I appreciated your time showing me that the fence is old, but you can manage it, and you identified where dogs can scoot under, but you can manage that by just putting something simple and a fix, and taking those resources and putting that money perhaps at some other things that you wanted. One of the things was a step down, because it gets very slippery when it's wet, especially when it's icy. So maybe steps with a couple of railings so you can get into the park safely. And we do know that someone did fall and have a good serious accident there. Well, I don't know if a good serious accident is what I meant, but it was a substantial impact on one's health, slipping on our park there. So again, I just want to thank you all for being so involved. You're long overdue for us to respond in kind with something there. A couple of lights and maybe $30,000, $40,000, considering that you've done all the work for the first 14, 15 years. We certainly owe it to our residents of 6,000 to put a little something there for the dog parks. And again, thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Councillor Ayala. Councillor Kim, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Clark, as well, from my end. My deepest thank you for your many years of service. I mean, you know, a lot of people, they do things when they're noticed, but when the eyes are not on you, it's really hard to do all those wonderful things. And thank you so much for doing that many times, I understand, by yourself. So I thank you for that. Myself not being a dog owner, although I have been bit by a few dogs, I'm not as, wasn't as sensitive to the needs of the dog park, and frankly wasn't on my radar. But the last few months, it has come forward, the issue, and as Mr. Olep kindly reminded everybody, with 2/3 of residents having dogs, it's certainly something that we need to set aside a budget for. And as well, I think, we've heard about, non-residents using it, and we do have a dog licensing and registration system, and so we need to leverage that. And I did have a question for you, and I'll leave my comments at that. If I remember, I'll email you, but thank you very much.
Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again for coming tonight. And I'm a dog owner, and anything we can do for our pets to make their lives are not part of our family, right? And I do want to, apologize, and I know that Mr. Lepp makes it clear, very clear on, sort of the, I don't want to say neglect, but we missed the target on helping as much as we could have. But I'm encouraged by you coming forward. Parks and Rec has got this under control. We're going to work hard at adding those things that you need to make it even more enjoyable. And I want to have a great park. I want it to be one of the ones that people continue to come, because it's better than the ones that they have in their town. And I know that's going to happen. So there's been a lot of attention. And one of the things that Councillor Maraca said recently, and we have a community recognition award coming up the end of May, is that volunteers are the backbone of our town, of our community, of our municipalities. And if it wasn't for volunteers, we wouldn't have the town we have or our neighboring towns. So as much as, volunteers make it happen. They make it happen. It's your love and passion that does it. And I mean, staff can clean up things and do things, but and they do it well as long as we give them that authority to do that. It's council's purview to do that. We need to give them direction, but the volunteers are the ones that do the real caring heart and love. I'm not discounting staff; they do the hard work, but you guys have done great for us, and I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you for putting up with some of the challenges you've had, but we're going to make a difference now. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries. Councillor Maracus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through Helen, thank you for coming. I'm going to echo what Councillor Humphries mentioned. You know, I think all of you at the park do a wonderful job volunteering, especially yourself. And you know, it's you all leave a positive impact to this community and make a difference. And so we all appreciate that. I know you and I have had many conversations. You brought this to my attention. I really didn't know there was an issue at the park before this term. And you know, I think it's time for the town to step up and take ownership and make the park beautiful. I think it's that opportunity now that we sit down, and which we have, and start to collaborate with each other and come up with those solutions that we need moving forward. And so I'm glad to see that we're moving in those steps. I just wanted to ask you a quick question, though. Had a lot of the users, have they been surveyed? Because I know that we identified 3 key areas that we want to look at moving forward quickly. Were all the users surveyed, and did that list come from a survey?
We actually have a Facebook page, and so we did when we started all this, we said, okay, what are the most important things to us? And the one that comes up is that the parking lot, and not so much that maybe that it needs to be paved, but it needs to be in a condition that you can walk your dog across the parking lot and be able to get into your car without having to go have your car detailed afterwards. So that was our top one. And then the second one would be our gate. And it's really the locking mechanism so that the gates are safe and they're closed, because right now in the winter, the gate shifts a little bit. So even if a dog jumps up and it pushes the gate, it'll pop open and they can actually free themselves from the park. So those, and I actually have the list through our Facebook page. I know you joined our page, so it's there. I could submit it back to you in a formal email if you like. And I think we also did that. I think we gave you the formal email for that as well. But if whatever you need, I can certainly provide that to you.
Thank you, Helen. And I agree. And I do think that staff have that survey possibly. Maybe if not, I'm sure Helen will get it to you. And I'm sure we'll have a bit of a discussion maybe if this item does get pulled later on, or if we might bring it forward. But I just want to once again thank you for everything that you and every other volunteer for the dog park does. And I'm looking forward to that day when I finally get a Jack Russell again and come out there and visit with all of you. So thank you.
There's no other. I'm sorry, Councillor Thompson. Apologize.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. Thank you very much for the presentation. And I just wanted to get your perspective in terms of the working relationship between yourself and the town and Mr. Downey and his staff. If you can just...
A bit challenging. For the most part, when we ask for stuff, sometimes it takes a while or it takes a couple of requests to get our wood chips and the like. But if it's something simple, then they're usually there to provide it fairly quickly. And it actually has improved since we put more focus on the dog park. I don't really have an issue with Al Downey and his staff at this point. Everything is progressing kind of the way we want it to. It's very positive between all of us, and I think now we have more of an open communication where things are happening. And sometimes if I submit a request, I don't always get an answer as to when or why something hasn't happened, which would be nice if I know that, okay, we don't have wood chips right now if I ask for them, rather than not get them or not get a response back to say, look, we don't have them right now and here's when we can do them. And I know that I'm sensitive to that the ground, that it's too soft in the spring and too soft in the fall to bring in the heavy equipment to do that. So I'm sensitive to what we need to do it in the midsummer and in the dead of winter when the ground is hard so that they can actually get in there and do their work. But other than that, I mean, we really don't have that many requests, and we really haven't kind of put anything forward to say, other than lighting, and we did get one light. And you know, whenever they've had stuff for us, they've given us what we've asked for. But again, we haven't asked for a lot. We really don't need a lot. We really like our space. But if we want to beautify our space at this point, and it has been 15 years, and it's time that we did some upgrades in the park. But I think ongoing, you'll see that it's not a lot of expenditure that goes into it. We'll put in a one-time expenditure to do a few things, and then it's really, the park is all about maintenance. It's not really about expenditure.
We can, if you wish. Well, we'd move the entire item, Parks and Rec. Parks, R2.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that item, Parks and Rec. It's on,
R2.
it's item R2. Thank you very much.
Second, please. Councillor Perry, thank you. Requires 2/3. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. You want to put that on the floor then, Councillor Abel? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Want to move as is?
I'll move as, well, I would like to amend, but okay, I'll move as is.
Second, please. Councillor Perry, back to you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'll start with Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Madam Clerk, and Councillor Perry, thank you as well. I would like to remark that I'm looking at the recommendation of the leash-free park, and it speaks on a number of points that it continue, and I don't know if everyone has this available for them, and I think it's important we put it up. So I'll read it until I'm that the Canine Commons continue to be operated based on the status quo. So I think they talked about the volunteers about that. That all upgrades and operational requires be presented in both the capital and the operating budgets, and I appreciate that too. I think that's the road we should go. And that staff be directed to work with the committee, and we're hearing that as well, expectations and overall satisfaction, and be directed to report back to council with a list of priorities for improvements. So the following issues be considered as top priority. I would like to amend that, Mr. Mayor, because the paving of the parking lot clearly is not a top priority. And if I go to the table in the actual report of February 16th, just to give you an idea, the list is $297,000, but the paving alone, see if I got this right, it's two pieces, because you have to do design and site drainage because it's asphalt, $35,000, and then $50,000 to pave it. And I think we could save a lot of money and take that and use it for some of the other things that they had described. And I really think the replacement of the fence, the impression I got again, and I asked them, it's not a priority to take the whole fence and replace it, because that cost there is someone help me. Here it is, $25,000. What they did need is some, as they pointed out, some orange fine link to put in the areas that they have identified. And if that is, but the bottom line is I think we should let them come forward and say, you know what, instead of $25,000, give us $1,000 for the orange change link, and instead of a paved thing, put in $10,000, and you don't have to do a design in a storm water, because that's what you need for asphalt. And then we're only spending $15,000, and with a budget of maybe $25,000, $30,000, $50,000, they can start saying, okay, now we'll change the latches, we'll put some steps in so that people don't fall. We wouldn't mind bringing in some trees, and it will cover the cost for the town to take it from its nursery and transplant them. The benches, they asked to be rounded, the corners. They have a whole list of things that when I walked around, that if they presented, could affect and beautify and make it a much more pleasant, and they would know. So I think the amendment I would like to do, that we ask the Canine Commons to come back with a list and a budget to prepare for our consideration, and discuss it with our staff, or along those lines, if that would work, rather than approve this paving a parking lot. And I think they would like it. They're more on the ground level on what exactly it is, and have a sense of what a budget looks like, and I think it would be much more palatable for us when we're considering it for the 2018. I might even consider or suggest that we do some of it this summer. I don't know how we could get with that, but if a report comes back quicker, we might be able to advance some of the projects ahead of time, because as the delegate said, when the ground is firm in the summer, a lot can be accomplished rather than in the fall and wait for a whole spring for the next summer. So that's sort of my thoughts. I don't know how I can get it into a notice of motion.
Councilor Abel, pardon me. I think the proper thing to do here would be refer that back to Parks and Rec, because we don't have a way to deal with the canine comments.
Okay.
That is, I would suggest it should go back to Parks and Rec, and I just had a quick chat with the clerk, and I will ask her to comment, to have them work that deal out or work out a plan, as you suggest, with that group.
Perhaps the chair of Parks and Rec could comment.
Okay, well, I was going to go to I'll go to the clerk first to see if I'm correct, because Councilor Abel does have a request, and then I can do that, okay? Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. I would refer it back to the Parks and Recreation Committee to work with the Canine Commons Committee to come back with a list of requests for council.
Okay, so I'll ask if there's Councilor Abel, are you okay with that referral?
Okay with that?
Okay, so let me see if there's a second for that, and if there is, then I will go to the chair. If not, we'll just... There is no second for your referral, sir.
All right, well, so the bottom line is we've got a report from the Parks and Rec, and it missed the target on the priorities here. So I would just like to have the priorities realigned, and I think that's what our delegates were asking.
Councilor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll speak a little bit to referring, but I think referring it would have just wasted time, and I think everyone just is looking to move forward. The recommendations that came out of the committee were to, in fact, Clause C is to direct to work, staff be directed to work with the Canine Commons Committee and determine the priority issues. So we're already directing to do that. And Clause D is that staff be directed to report back to council with a list of priorities. And we just heard from one of the delegates that they did survey, and when we sat in committee, these were the priorities that were brought up by the delegates that delegated to the committee, was the parking, was the fence, and was the gate. Those were the top three. Now, no one's saying that we're not going to look at doing anything else and what style or what the paving can be. We had all those discussions at committee, and Mr. Downey is fully aware that let's look at all the different types of options that could possibly be used as some type of paving, whether it's permeable pavers, whether it's a different type of material. Let's look at all those options and bring it forward. And all we're asking here tonight is to say, yes, staff, develop that report with these priorities, give us a cost breakdown, and bring it back to council and let council decide at that point how we're going to move forward and which ones we're actually going to go forward with. And during that time, I'm pretty sure Mr. Downey is definitely going to be working with the group and with the users and try to finally, now if anyone here at the table wants to just throw every suggestion that was put forward and say, let's have that all come back in a report at once, I'm fine with that as well. But we thought at the committee level, let's try to break it down. What are those three top priorities? Let's get on those quickly, and then let's look at the other ones and move forward slowly. Let's create that budget that they have on a yearly basis so we can maintain this park properly. And at the end of the day, I think that's what this is asking to do. And I think the users, for the most part, are comfortable moving forward with this, and they see that we're looking to improve the park. So I'm hopeful that everyone's going to approve this and we can get going on improving our dog park.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Through Mr. Mayor, Councilor Maracas said it also. It's all in the recommendations here, and the priorities are paving the parking lot, replacing the fence and gate to start, and then goes over. Staff has absolute direction to work with the Canine Commons Committee to determine other priority issues as well and expectations, overall satisfaction of the existing facility and future issues. So, I think if we approve this tonight, we'll be in good shape to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're all in sync here. Clearly, there's two priorities that were recommended, which is paving the parking lot and replacing of the fencing and gate. If we wait till the next budget, then nothing's going to be in place until the following year. So I'm all for asking staff to bring back a report, give us a budget. Let's take care of these two items, given that the sensitivity of the ground in that area. Summertime would be the best time to do especially these two items. So I'm all for having staff come back with an item right away and give us some pricing. And certainly, I'm sure we can find something in our operating budget, if not in one of our reserves funds, to get this going. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. The general sense that I got from the committee is that, we're in favor of having a leash-free park in Aurora, and we recognize that it's time to put some more money into it, to invest in it, and address some of the issues that have been brought up. And so we went through that table and essentially asked the delegates who were there, what is the immediate priorities? And they had helped point out those two items that we saw. But as was alluded earlier, parts of that recommendation is to continue the ongoing discussion with them with regards to the priorities and try and address these little by little, year by year, to bring this park up to a higher standard.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to go to Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify through you to Mr. Downey. Under the staff comments section, it does say that you'll be aiming to bring forward these issues in a report in 2017, so that we won't be having to wait we won't necessarily have to wait until for a 2018 budget. Is that still the case, that this is going to be planned to be brought forward in 2017 so we can make those decisions?
Mr. Downey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff are prepared to present a report to Council this year with regards to works that could be done or proposed to be done at the dog park upon Council approval of a capital budget. The report is basically done at this point. We would simply do some modifications to the report that we presented to the Parks and Recreation Cultural Committee and then rework that report as a general committee report and then ultimately to Council.
Councillor Perry.
And then at that point, it would be up to Council to decide if we wanted to dip into some of our reserve funds to get this work done and completed in this calendar year, because I don't think it was contemplated fully in the 2017 budget. But that'll be a decision for us to make at a later point in time once we approve what we have in front of us here today. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so I'm hearing that Council is in full support of paving the lot and replacing the fence, and the budget's there. So, there's going to be collaboration. So, I'm very hopeful that we'll see some beautification and some practical solutions to the problems that have been presented. And so, I thank all the delegates and those that showed up, and I'm looking forward to seeing this move forward.
Councillor Maracas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's some confusion at the table, but no one's approving anything tonight. We're just approving getting a report back from staff.
Thank you. Any other comments on the dog park element? Now, we've got the whole report on the table at this point. So there's other items in here. There's the Canada 150. There is the Heritage. So, I'm sorry? Yeah, I think we probably had better do that. I'm sorry, Councillor Abel? Well, we're still dealing in PRAC, in the Parks and Rec. Yeah, we're still, so any comments on anything else, because there was obviously Mr. Chappelle. We're kind of a little off track here in terms of procedure, so if we could be quick.
Mayor, we had pulled through this R2, and under the same report, a delegate did talk about new business motion number 1A, that staff be directed to investigate current and future needs of facility development. And I just wanted to say that the delegate did mention there are several reports on hand, and I'm just wondering if I could ask through you, Mr. Mayor, if the director would respond to those tools that are available to move forward with something.
Mr. Downey, this is with respect to potentially new facilities, correct, Councillor Abel?
Yes, and our delegate, Mr. Terrell, he mentioned that there are surveys and other items that would need a full-blown consultation with all the information on hand. I was just asking, Mr. Mayor, if the director could respond and acknowledge that he has those, or does he plan to use them, or where we are with the development.
Mr. Downey, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding with regards to the delegation from Mr. Chappell was that he was looking for council support on moving forward with potential of a new facility. Much beyond that, there was no discussion about what that facility would look like, when that would go on, but a commitment by council that a new facility was on the horizon and that we could then commence the work of putting together information that would assist council in determining what that facility might look like, where that facility might grow, and when that facility might be built. But this is the first step in looking for a commitment from council with regards to us reaching out to the community in order to gather information for that next multipurpose facility.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Any other, you've already gone 3 times on this one element, so, and I want...
I just asked one question, Mr. Mayor was going to ask.
Well, but we also had the dog, well, it was all in Parks and Rec. So, quickly, please.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask, when do you see a report coming, and are you going to be collaborating with Sport Aurora to gather that information for something for us to see?
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I haven't got a timeline on the report at this point. It certainly will be through a discussion that I'm going to have with Sport Aurora. I happen to concur with Mr. Chappell's suggestion that we get together, do a roundtable discussion about what the needs are, how we're going to fill any gaps in information, and when that might be coming forward. So I haven't got a timeline or a time commitment at this point, other than my understanding that I do have direction to go off and meet with the groups, start gathering information, and report to council as soon as I possibly can once I have information that I believe is satisfactory for council to move forward with the next step in this decision.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. If there's no other comments or questions from Parks and... Councillor Thompson, apologize.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add some of the commentary that came out of that PRAC meeting. As you'll see in the motion, and I'm sure everybody's read the motion, the report is to go back to that Parks and Rec committee. There was talk about doing a subcommittee, and as we all know, Sport Aurora sits on that committee and actually now has 2 representatives. So the next step would be to go back to PRAC, form a little subcommittee, which of course will include Sport Aurora and the other organizations as we work through this, and then report back to council. But I'm sure everybody read that.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Okay, I'm going to call the vote just on this subpart of R2, which is the Parks and Rec. All in favor then of this particular one? Opposed? That is carried. Now let's go back to the first part, which is the Canada 150. Any speakers on the Canada 150, please? Councillor Thompson? Councillor Abel, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank the work for the committee. That was a very busy day. Myself and Councillor Maracas, we attended.
Madam Clerk, we're okay with splitting them and then speaking to them individually? I appreciate your point, Councillor, but we kind of got out of turn and procedurally here. Fair enough. All those in favor? Well, what would you propose we do?
I would propose that if, we've all had the opportunity to speak to what's on the agenda, to the motion. So our typical procedure is that you're allowed to speak twice to a motion. We have one motion on the table, and so I don't think it's appropriate that we go through each and every item to discuss it multiple times. If use your opportunity to speak, and we'll follow regular procedure, Mr. Mayor. That's all I'm asking.
Well then, and then that suggestion, I would go back to let's go back to the start of the agenda and get back on track. And get there. I would say yes.
3 different reports contained in here.
Yeah, and we
so,
need to...
I mean, I think we've highlighted a good problem with summarizing the committee recommendations to this point, because if you have multiple advisory committee minutes, you're not able to address them all.
To the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The problem has arisen because we've moved up R2 ahead of the regular agenda. All of the items C2 to C10 are basically what's in R2. So if we were following the regular agenda, you'd have an opportunity to pull C3 or C7 or C10. But because we were trying to advance the business, we pulled R2 instead of the individual report. So if we go back to the regular agenda, you'll be sort of back in order and be able to handle them. And then R2 just becomes a summary of your discussions, or becomes all the remaining action items, less any that you've pulled prior to getting to R2. Would that work, Clerk?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. All right, so then we'll go to item 5 in the agenda, which is a consent item, starting with C1. But before I go there, I would like to recognize our new clerk, almost, Michael Durand, who is in the, Michael, wave, stand up, wave. Michael will be joining us very soon. The bylaw is on the agenda for tonight. Michael's going to be joining us from the beautiful town of Uxbridge. And we do appreciate you coming to give us some of your time. So that's great. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Someone's got to keep me in track here. Appreciate it. Second, please. Councilor Marcus, thank you. All in favor? And then we'll come back to it. Thank you. It's carried. All right. So going back to, okay, let's just finish this and then we'll take our break. Okay? So right now we're in C1, which is the consent agenda coming forward from the General Committee meeting of last week. Are there any items, and we've all got the sheet on our table, are there any items in here that anyone would like to have pulled for general discussion, please? Councillor Thompson?
I would ask that the minutes of the 150th be pulled.
That's, when we get down to, that's under, I'm just looking at C1 right now.
C1, the GC report, or C1, the remuneration of expenses?
No, that's C1, which is GC from last week.
I do have a question about the statement of remuneration and expenses for members of council, so
Okay.
whenever it's appropriate. I just want to get something clarified.
Just a sec, that is...
C1.
C1, okay, thank you. Any others? Please. Okay, so if I could have a motion then to adopt the items in C1 which do not require separate discussion? Okay, well, we'll go to your question first and then
Because
the whole thing.
I know we're still dealing with a new system with consent. I'm not looking to change the motion. I'm just looking to get some additional information.
Please.
So, and really, I guess perhaps Councillor Abel's best to answer this question. I just noticed that in the remuneration there was a listing here for an event that he attended called How to Amplify Your Event Workshop. And, you know, I'm just, I guess I should have asked it previously. I'm kind of curious because I haven't seen this, and we always get all kinds of different advertisements for different courses that elected officials can take. So I guess really my question through you to Mr. Abel, Councillor Abel, is was this a course designed for elected officials, and who offered it?
Councillor Abel?
Well, I took a couple of courses. I know I took one with Neighborhood Network on volunteering, and it was more or less on, I consider it a part of our fabric and the role that they play. And I think the one you're talking about is the, there's an alliance that the town, I'm not sure if the town belongs to it, but I know music festivals are. It's the Festival of York Alliance and York Region Festival Alliance. And it was more or less a course on how to do events, fundraise for them, structure them to get volunteers. And as far as an application for the town, perhaps it was one that I was going to volunteer for with the multicultural event. I thought it might be valuable trying to get a festival and a councillor, and I thought there might be some oversight as we have with other committees and other events. Not all of them, but so I thought that's where it applied for the town. I think it was. Do you have a cost on that?
Councillor Thompson?
No, I was just wondering if the course was directed towards elected officials. So from your explanation, no, it's just I guess a general course offered to the public for anybody that's interested in, as you said, festivals or music events or whatever. Thank you.
Well, just to clarify, it was an invitation to people that are in the Festival Alliance, as you said, the York Region Festival Alliance, and it is probably for an elected official to better understand community events and the role of volunteers and the value that festivals add for town events, tourism, and other such events that we hold here in our town. And as you know, Councillor Thompson, we have a number of great events here in our town that we run, Rib Fest, concerts in the park, and we have to make decisions on budget and how those things go. Often all of us attend these events and help volunteer and provide a role there as elected officials to encourage those to be there. So I would say it does involve elected officials, and it's a role. I think it's an important role that we all take, and I would recommend the course to you.
Thank you. Any other comments on item C1? In that case, all in favor of item C1, please. Opposed? That is carried. We typically take a break right about now. May I have a motion to recess until... I'm sorry, Councillor Perry? Did we have a mover? No, we didn't. I don't think we had a mover. Councillor Perry, would you? Councillor Kim second it, please? Thank you. Appreciate that. May I have a motion to recess until 9:15? Councillor Maracas, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
All right, thank you. Could I have a motion to resume? Councillor Maracas, Councillor Kim, all in favor? That passes, Madam Clerk. By way of explanation, Mayor Daw is not feeling well and has taken his leave, and as Deputy Mayor, I'll take over the chair. Madam Clerk, we were at, I think we just pulled an item on the expenses for councillors. Was that the last item? Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we just voted on item C1, and we are on item C2 through C10.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we had a little discussion, and if it's council's pleasure, items C2 to C10, and I'm using our long list that has been prepared, we'll ask that if any of these items you'd like pulled we'll ask like we used to do, and then the ones that weren't pulled we'll approve, and then we'll go back and we'll address each item that was pulled. So I'm going to start to my left from C2 to C10. Councillor Perry, is there anything you'd like pulled? Nothing. Councillor Kim? Nothing. Councillor Humphreys? Nothing. Councillor Thompson?
I believe it's C7, the candidate of 1 to 50 minutes.
Okay. Councillor Maracas?
I did want to pull C6, which is the mayor's memo of Lake Simcoe, but seeing as the mayor's not here, can we just refer that to the next meeting? Or defer it, so just so I can speak to it and ask the questions that I was looking to ask?
So we'll pull that and you can defer it. So for the moment, we pulled C6, C7. Councillors, is there any others that you'd like to pull? So then I'm going to ask for a notice of motion that we approve C2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, and 10. I think we already did 10. So 9 would be included. 10 as well? Thank you. Could I have a motion to do all those? Councillor Thompson, seconded. Councillor Perry, comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That carries, Madam Clerk. So we have 2 items on the consent agenda. C6, Councillor Maracas, you did say deferred. Do you want to put that officially on there? I've got a seconder. To defer, Councillor Perry, comments, questions? None? In the absence of the mayor, we'll defer to the next meeting. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item C7, Canada's 150 minutes. Councillor Thompson, did you want to put that on the table?
I'll move the recommendation as is. However, I have a specific question about one of the recommendations.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Kim, thank you. Councillor Thompson, floor is yours.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really, it has to do with presentation done by Music Aurora and the Canada 150 Music Festival. And perhaps the question is best directed to you, Councillor Abel, since you are a board member for Music Aurora. The recommendation is that staff be directed to work with Music Aurora and investigate the feasibility of creating a summer music festival and report back to Canada 150. So I guess I'm a little confused about the feasibility of creating a summer music festival. Is this a different music festival than what Music Aurora came and applied for with the permit before? Perhaps you could elaborate which music festival they want to create.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. Great question. So it's the very same music festival. The permit was for the weekend of August 5th, August 6th. Canada 150 idea of celebrating a music festival with Canada 150 was something that Music Aurora came to the committee to discuss. At the beginning of the meeting, the mayor had asked everyone that was presenting, and there were 4 delegations. You see them on the list there. He asked each person to put a dollar amount forward so that they could move and understand quickly. And so when the delegates came up, they said there's no money, or it's $12,000. Music Aurora didn't have a dollar amount because they didn't really know what kind of a number to put on. So it wasn't a feasibility.
I just, going back to the concern you raised earlier with regards to my motion, so this one's not factually correct. We're not really looking to ask staff to feasibility of creating a summer music festival. As you said, this is your music fest the Aurora Music Fest that you did at Highland Park that has now been rebranded in the summertime at the Aurora Park. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct. However, there was a music festival last year, and it was done under the Aurora Summer Music Festival. This is under Music Aurora, which partnered with Aurora Winter Blues Festival and is an incorporated not-for-profit with a board of directors. So there's a distinct difference. They're not the same. It's not rebranded. And really the better way of wording this was to discuss with staff partnering a 150 Music Festival celebration in the town park.
My apologies. I read an article in the Auroran, and you were quoted as saying that it's a relaunch of the Aurora Music Festival, which debuted last summer at Highland Park. So perhaps they got that quote wrong from you. So
perhaps you did. Any other comments or questions? I think when it comes back, the report, it'll probably work at that time. I don't understand your question, Councillor Thompson.
My question is that the motion is not accurate. You said that it's not about creating a summer music festival. So are we going to change that motion so that it doesn't ask staff to comment on the feasibility of creating a summer music festival when you've already indicated that They are not doing that. It is the existing summer festival, which you are already moving forward with.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. There is going to be a summer music festival in the town park. And I think Music Aurora wanted to come forward and say, do you want to enhance it and make it a 150 legacy project? So
my suggestion would be that perhaps the motion get amended to just to simply say that staff be directed to work with Music Aurora and report back to the Canada 150th Ad Hoc Committee.
do we have to defeat, or can I ask Madam Clerk? Is it amendment, or is it? It's amendment. I'll ask the CAO to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I wasn't at that meeting, so I'm not entirely sure if that reflects the direction of the committee. Right now, those are the minutes of the committee, so I guess you're looking for an amendment to the minutes if they're not accurate. I don't know who else was. I guess there's nobody here from the committee, so. Well, that's always a possibility, I suppose, but.
I would suggest, timing-wise, we want to try and move these projects forward. We're into the second quarter. There's a report coming back, councillors, but it would probably address working together and getting a dollar amount is what I understood what was being asked to do. So perhaps the wording could be that staff be directed to work with Aurora Music Festival on what partnership opportunities and budget are available. Would that be okay? Because that's sort of how I remembered it. So could we amend it as such? All right, moved. A seconder for that? Councillor Kim, comments, questions? All in favor? Councillor Perry?
I understand Councillor Thompson's concerns. I think the intent of minutes, though, are to reflect the motions that were made at a meeting at a certain date and time. Completely understand with your concerns, but if we're going to go back and start amending minutes now, none of us were there. I don't think it's a fair reflection on what was actually moved by the committee, and that's what minutes are for, is to reflect what was actually moved, what was put forward. And if that was the motion put forward by Mr. Hagopian and Ms. Matthews, then I believe that the minutes should stand. I think your concerns have been noted. I would tend to agree with your concerns, but if you look at the spirit and the intent of minutes, it's to let us know what's happened. And for us to be changing that now, I don't think it falls in lines with what minutes should be doing. If you don't want to accept the minutes, I can understand that as well, but just with what their intent are, I'm not in favor of amending the minutes, because I think what happened at the meeting happened at the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. So, Councillor Thompson, you still care to go forward?
I'm happy to amend. At the end of the day, we're not creating a new summer festival. We've asked staff to investigate that, and so that's the issue. So I know as Councillor Abel started off the evening talking about the importance of making sure the motions are factual, I'm just following up on his concerns. So at this point, I'm happy for staff to report back on the committee, but, as far as I understand, they were just talking about enhancing the existing festival that's already has been developed. As we know, they came months ago and asked for a permit and said, here, we're doing this festival. And so there is no emerging or new festival. It's already been planned, I assume, and really they're just asking for a few additional dollars. So really all I'm asking for is that the feasibility of creating a summer music festival be stricken, because it's not accurate.
So it just merely adds clarification. Councillor Thompson, you made a motion. It was seconded by Councillor Kim. I'll just call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? So the amendment fails. We're back to the original.
I didn't see everybody's hands up, so either can we have a recorded vote on that? Ability of creating a summer music festival.
I'll ask the clerk Madam Clerk, if you could read, and it is an amendment, is it not?
Yes.
Yes, it would be an amendment to the motion. Just give me one moment. So the amendment would be that staff be directed to work with Music Aurora and report back to the Canon 150 Ad Hoc Committee. So the removal of the words "and investigate the feasibility of creating a summer music festival." Okay. So I will.
Okay, Councillor?
Great.
Okay, Councillor Kim? And, okay, we're going to vote on that, and a recorded vote has been asked for.
So this is vote on the amendment. Councillor Thompson? Yes. Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Perry? No. Councillor Perry votes no. Councillor Humphreys? Yes. Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. Councillor Marakis? Yes. Councillor Marakis votes yes. Councillor Abel?
Yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. That carries.
Right. So we have covered this. Okay, so vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Madam Clerk. I'll go back to the agenda. So that takes care of the consent part of the agenda, which is C2 to C10. Madam Clerk, we go to R1. Okay, R1 on our agenda is the Magna Golf Club fireworks display. I asked, so moved by Councillor Perry, seconded, Councillor Marakis. Comments, questions? Councillor Marakis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, maybe Mr. CEO, I'm just curious because the report mentions it's someone's birthday. I'm just wondering, do we know whose birthday it is?
Mr. CEO?
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of whose birthday it is.
Who is it?
No, I've just been informed it's a surprise, so maybe
Thank
we
you.
shouldn't talk about it too much. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Someone will know. Okay, very good. If there's no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Madam Clerk. Now R2. We tabled R2, so could I have a motion to bring it back? Councillor Perry, seconded. Councillor Marakis. Comments, questions on R2? Are there any items on R2 that we didn't cover? All right. Councillor Thompson?
Through you to the clerk, just confirmation that R2 will be amended to reflect the change that we made in the Canada 150th minutes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. We will make that amendment in the report to reflect that change.
If there's no further questions, comments, everything's covered, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Madam Clerk, that concludes this portion of the agenda. Both items. So we will go to notice of motions. I believe it's Councillor Marakis, bylaw right of entry. Just give us a moment to post that. There we go. Would you care to move that, Councillor? Can I have a seconder? Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Would you care to speak on this, Councillor Marakis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, this has actually been quite a long time trying to put this together. After reading an article back in 2012, before my time on council, I came to realize that that bylaw officers actually can enter onto your property, and they've been given that right under the Municipal Act. And, you know, I think that's a bit of a shocking revelation, I think, not only for myself, but I think if you told the majority of residents within this town that bylaw officers, just from a phone call complaint, could enter onto your property without any permission, they would be shocked at that. So, you know, I did have initial conversations with the mayor and told him my thoughts and what I was thinking of proposing, and then moved on and started dealing with staff. And I dealt with staff over basically the beginning of the term to now. And we are here with this motion in front of you, hopefully looking to make some changes on how we allow these, whether we do allow the rights of entry or how we allow them. You know, I do have, personally, I have some concerns of allowing someone to have so much, I guess, in essence, power or authority. And I know that our officers do take care, and our department does look at ways of not exercising those rights unless they absolutely have to. But I do believe that it's not a matter of just you know, whether we say that we're only going to use those rights in certain instances, or whether we're going to use them if we have to. You know, at the end of the day, I think that you look at the police force. Would we say the same? Would we say that, you know, there's a public safety issue? They're out there to protect us as residents, and should we allow them to have full authority to do whatever it is that they want? But they won't use it. But they'll only use it in certain situations. And so I don't think anyone would say let's do that. Let's allow the police to have that type of power to be able to enter onto your property or enter into your premises. You know, I kind of look at it as if someone called and complained to the police and said, you know, my neighbor has a couple marijuana plants that they're growing in their backyard. You know, can you come take a look, or can you come do something about it? And the police show up. And they knock on the door and no one answers. They wouldn't be allowed to just walk into the backyard and take a look. I mean, they could, but it wouldn't fly in court. The evidence would be thrown out. And so, to me, that kind of speaks to what if we're going to allow it in one instance in society, why are we not going to allow it for everyone? And the reason is because under our Charter of Rights and Freedom in Section 8, it states about search and seizure. It's part of our rights, our fundamental rights. And so it's important that, I mean, quite honestly, I don't understand how the province actually made this, why they made this change back in 2006. I think it was Bill 130, where they added this clause in to allow this. And I guess through you, Mr. Chair, I do have a question maybe for Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, previous to this being enacted and allowed, what did we do? Was it just overpowering, where our hands were tied and we couldn't get anything done? Was the public safety at risk before this was enacted?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so prior to 2006, that's going a long way back, and I would have to really do some research to be able to respond to that question. I can tell you that certain rights of entry are contained within other legislation like the Building Code Act, and prior to 2006, those rights of entry were contained within the Building Code Act. So there were certain rights of entry in certain pieces of legislation, as there continues to be today.
Councillor?
Thank you. And so, and for myself, it's not so much on the building code aspect of it. For me, it's more on the property standards and dealing directly with our residents. You know, I look through the motion that I put here on the table, and while I like both clauses, I feel it's missing a clause, and so I'd actually like to make an amendment and add a second clause that would fall in between those two. So if I could do that at this point, if I can read it out.
I don't see an issue with that.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Sure. So I'd like it to say that when the property owner refuses permission or is absent, then a warrant must be obtained to enter said property, excluding instances where immediate access is required to ensure public health and safety and protection of property and/or the environment. And so it would fall in between the two.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Madam Clerk, did you get that? Was that okay?
I can send you.
Okay, we have the gist of it. If we have to repeat it, Councillor, you will for us. Thank you. But you will send a copy to the clerk.
I'm sending it right now.
Oh, thank you very much. Do you want to take a moment or
I got 2 more times to speak, right? So I'll stop for right now and I'll hear what everyone else has to say and then I'll jump back in. Speaking to the amendment, I guess, yeah.
All right, Councillor, thank you very much. I have Councillor Humphreys.
Actually, can I just speak to the amendment quickly then?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is an important step for us to take. I personally, and in my opinion, I don't believe that if a complaint is launched or lodged or someone calls in on someone that if our bylaw officers show up to the house, knock on the door, there's no answer, I don't think that they should have the right to enter onto whether it's my property or any other resident's property in this town. And so that's why I think it's important that we put these steps in, these protocols, these checks and balances to make sure that not only the rights of the residents, but there is a concern with our staff. I mean, because quite frankly, I mean, if I'm not home and all of a sudden I come home and there's someone in my backyard, I mean, there could be some issues. Depending on who you run into. So you got to look at the safety of the staff, you got to look at the safety of our residents, right? And to me, I heard from other councils that it helps with efficiency because you don't have to go get that warrant, you don't have to go through the courts. But to me, efficiency doesn't mean that we should trample all over the rights of our residents. While we're looking to protect our residents on one end, we can't forget about the rights on the other end. And so we got to find that middle ground, that compromise. And I think this is something that will find that compromise while we're asking for a warrant. In certain circumstances, we're still saying, hey, let's look at what are those public safety issues, what are those environmental issues, what is their health hazards. Let's identify those issues and have them out so everyone knows when someone can or cannot enter your property, and not just enter it whenever they feel that there's been a complaint lodged and that they should just walk on. So
that was to the amendment. Thank you, Councillor. And do we have a moment to get that amendment up? I'm
trying to send it right now.
Okay, I just wanted to understand, and if you could, where it goes in the therefores, or is it before that? Because we are asking staff for a report back, so I guess that's to be included in the report back. For consideration, rather than we're not approving that without a report. Okay. So Councillor Marakis, I'm gonna pause for a moment and let you send that forward, and I'll go to Councillor Humphreys for your comments. We're talking about the amendment.
The amendment, perfect.
Yes.
To the amendment, and I want to thank Councillor Marakis for adding that amendment, because I was going to put something like that forward and even add maybe something else later, but we will focus on this one for now and then see how that all works out and what feedback we're going to get from the rest of council and staff. But for me, it's really important that we take a good hard look at this current policy and look forward. I absolutely support this amendment and the motion in its entirety. I've had experiences over the last 7 years in issues, and not often in inspections. I think home inspections and building inspections are fine. It's these types of things where our residents are shocked that our bylaw officers have that type of authority, and when our police officers don't. So, what? So I'm not going to say much more because I think we need to have that on the board. But are you almost finished typing that, Councilor Maracus? Sorry, my apologies. Sorry, can you put it up just so I know that I can speak exactly? I think I understand what he's doing, what his intent is. But okay, perfect. Okay.
Councilor Humphrey, if I could,
Yeah,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
ask Mr. CAO to, now that we have it up there, so we can get a bit of clarification here. Mr. CAO, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, so I see the wording now on the screen. So this is a definitive resolve that without the benefit of any report from staff. Is that correct?
Three clauses together. I can speak to it. If you read all three clauses together, so if we can put up all three.
Is that possible, Madam Clerk? He wants to.
Yeah, I know. I know this
So
is getting a bit
perhaps
difficult.
if you could, just so for our understanding, Councilor Maracus, we have one on our notice of motion, therefore be resolved that staff report back, and then be it further restored that staff report back, and then you're saying that this amendment is placed somewhere because, as the CAO, Mr. CAO pointed out, this is a definitive.
This is a definitive aspect that I would like to come back in that report. So when you read it, you read, now therefore be hereby resolved that staff report back to council with a notification process to private property owners where rights of entry to properties will be exercised, and that when the property owner refuses permission or is absent, that a warrant must be obtained to enter said property, excluding instances where, I'm not going to read the whole thing again, and then be it further resolved that staff report shall identify the protocols where immediate access to the property is required to ensure public health. So if you follow it through, we're asking for that report. I'm asking for that. When the permission in that report, when you bring it back, I want it to read that that when permission is not granted, or when there's an absent owner, that a warrant should be obtained, unless excluding those instances, and then in that report shall identify those items that will be excluded.
Got an idea? Thank you, Councillor. So perhaps be it further resolved that the report include the provision that when a property owner refuses permission, would that more or less include what we're talking about? That everything is there, but it's included in the report, rather than we're resolving that issue right this second, because it's a little in between for us.
Yeah, and I'm not asking to resolve that issue right this minute. I'm asking for that issue, that basically the report that comes back, that it speak to, or it have as part of that report and the recommendation that it has, that we are asking for a warrant to be obtained if the property owner refuses permission or is absent.
We have that. Okay,
it's just about setting the criteria that we can basically adopt and approve when this report comes forward.
And so the clerk has acknowledged, and she'll correct that wording to reflect exactly that it includes that provision in the report, as you've worded it. All right, I was with Councillor Humphreys. You are complete. To the amendment, Councillor Perry, did you want to say something else, Councillor? Okay, fine. Councillor Perry on the amendment?
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification, because I'm not in favor of just doing something without a full report back on what the implications would be if we move forward. So if we are just doing this so that we get information in a report, I hear that's what we're saying around the table, but if you read what's in front of us, it says something different.
That's correct. And the clerk is going to make those changes right now to read that.
Again, it's not my intention to wordsmith. I'm just saying that if we're saying that it be further resolved when a property owner refuses permission or is absent, then a warrant must be obtained. That is definitive. There's nothing in that clause asking for another report.
Thank you,
And so
Councillor.
that's why I'm just making sure that it's very clear that this is going to come back in a report. We're not directing our staff to write a report with this outcome. Staff will give us their fair and unbiased opinion on something. And then if that's the way we want to move forward, then that's the way we'll move forward. And I think everybody's in favor of getting information. And then once we get the information, we can make a decision then. But I don't think we're making any decisions tonight. I want to make sure that we're not presupposing anything. And I've heard that around the table multiple times. So in terms of the amendment, I'm happy to support it. And I look forward to speaking to the motion as amended afterwards.
Thank you. And that is being looked after right now, and we have seen 2 instances where it's important that we get the wording right. So we will do that, and I understand Linda's working on that right now with our... All right. Does that mean something? If you want to check with Linda, she's working on it right now. Isn't that right? It just hasn't come up yet, Councillor. So, excluding the direct resolution, Councillor Perry, you were in support of it being included as part, but not exactly as it's worded, because we're going to get that back in the report. That wording is going to be done right now. Yes, go right ahead. Floor is still yours.
So just to clarify, maybe since this is a protocol, we can just ask staff and have them verbally give us a nod that this is something that they'll be investigating, so we don't have to go through this process, because I understand the intent. It's just not necessarily as cut and dry as it looks when it's on paper. So maybe if staff is willing to commit to looking at that as one of the things they'll report back on, we don't necessarily need an amendment.
Well, we're going to change the wordsmithing on that, and Councillor Marakis and the clerk have all indicated exactly as you said, as the CAO has as well. So we will see that hopefully in short time, and I think the more we pressure, the longer it takes. So we have the gist of what it is, and I would like to go to the next speaker. If you're complete, Councillor Perry, you will support it as it should be worded, not the way it is in front of us. So. I'll go to the next speaker, Councillor Thompson.
I'm speaking to the main motion.
Okay, Councillor Kim to the amendment.
I was going to speak to the main motion, but I'll speak to the amendment as well. I'm in support of the spirit of the amendment, and I hope as part of the staff report that it will also contain, firm and detailed conditions as to who will allow the exception for entry and the conditions that warrant the entry onto private property, and as well as the timelines, because if anyone's going to, if there are urgent situations, then certainly the warrant can't be given 2 or 3 days later. So hopefully the timelines will be looked at as well.
Okay, Councillor Kim, thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Perry. Did you want to speak to the amendment again?
No, that's
okay. Fine. So, do we want to wait till that amendment is going to be done, or do we want to vote on it? I think Linda's pretty quick on this, so let's just give her 1 second here. We'll talk about the Leafs. Any score? They are. Don't jinx them. Should be over. Oh, it's in Florida. It started at 8. All right, we'll talk about Raptors then. If you can, Mr. CAO, Councillor Marakis will read it once you're finished there. If it goes on the board, that's even better. So we've now put the wordsmith idea. Council, please have a look at it. Item 2. Is everyone okay with that? If so, I'm going to call the vote. No, Councillor Humphries, go ahead, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't mind the way this is written, but it's staff consider options available. It just sounds like there's an option to say forget it. I'm just a little bit worried about how it's written, and is that on purpose to, is this something we can't do? Because for me, it's very critical that we move forward on this. I really want it to happen. So staff consider the options. Staff present the options available is more than consider, because I don't want it considered. I want it to happen.
I think, Councillor Humphries, a very good point. And I think that staff has acknowledged what we want. And when the report comes, it certainly can be borne out at that time that, hey, you forgot something, or this wasn't concerned. I had Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, reading it up on the screen, I would agree with Councillor Humphries. The word consider, I think it should be present the options. We're going to wordsmith, but you know what, the intent of what I want, I'm specifically, I know in my opinion, I'm strong about what I'm looking to get back in the report. And I don't think having the wording staff consider the options, because I don't want them to consider it. I want them to present the options to us.
All
and
right.
One of those options being requiring the warrant.
More definitive. Thank you, Councillor Marakis. And I'm noting with Madam Clerk that is exactly what we'll do. And that is, I'm getting Councillor Perry not quite there, but I need the seconder to agree to it as well. All right, so now we've got it up there. It's a little more detailed. All right. So is that okay with the seconder? Yes, it is. Councillor Marakis?
That's fine.
Any other comments on the amendment? Okay. I'll call a vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the main motion. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the main motion, originally had Councillor Humphries, Councillor Perry, Councillor Thompson, and Councillor Kim.
Thank you very much. To the main motion as amended.
Yes.
Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thanks to Councillor Marakis to putting this motion forward. I believe this does many things. Number one, it protects, the rights of our residents in terms of having an option to not allow entry. I know that police can't enter, and I know that there's, first and foremost, we're trying to keep our communities safe and protected, and that's very, very important. But I do believe that the owners have a responsibility to comply to our bylaws, and they're ultimately responsible. And if we approach the resident and we do not get entry, we go back with the warrant. We're still doing our job, but it allows, I think, respect, two-way street respect. Secondly, for me, and I don't know if it's appropriate now, but I'll wait till everyone else speaks. I think there's, and the motion's gone now, sorry, I was looking at that. The original motion, I think, allows also for notification to council on some particular, I guess, entry, or I'm not sure how that was worded. I'm sorry, it's not in front of me now, but there's your first part, Councillor Marakis, something about, that council get notified on some, I guess, exceptional issues. Or did you put that in there? Sorry, I thought I read that. Anyway, I'll support this 100% as it is, and I may add one more amendment to the motion after everyone's spoken. Thanks. that's all for me right now.
Councillor Thompson?
I'm certainly supportive of getting the report back and taking a look at it. I think we all recognize that there are issues for sure, but you know, and as Councillor Marakis alluded to, I think there's an opportunity here to examine, review our process, and perhaps find some middle ground. But it's certainly a fascinating subject. There's been lots written about it recently. I was looking at some articles written by Peter Jaworski, who had posted in the National Post, as well as there's certainly a number of residents who have sent us some other additional information. And I think there are obvious implications with it, and I think you know, staff will have their hands full to wade through them all, but I think it's a long time that we sort of reviewed the process.
Did you ask a question? I wasn't paying attention. Thank you very much.
Nope.
I'll go next. Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. There are some things I like about this motion, some things I don't like about the motion. I really don't like the justification that because Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan require a bylaw, that affects us in some way. It really doesn't. Who knows what their other rules and regulations are? That's one issue. But if we're talking about I think this has a big benefit to our staff members. It can provide safety. You never know whose house you're walking into. I'd like to think everybody's homes in Aurora are safe. But even if you look back on some news stories, that's not always the case, and it's unfortunate that it's not the case. So I think this could provide us with some ability to maybe give some foresight to our staff members on whose homes they're walking into and the past reception they've received. Another thing I like about this is that it doesn't affect building code and our chief building officer and our building inspectors, because I do think that they have to have a role in being able to go to sites where some people might not be doing legal construction, and you know, it's an assurance, not just now, but you know, 10 years after the property's been sold, if there is a fire, there's a way to prevent that from happening. So my question, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Ms. Van Leeuwen, could you provide me some examples of some not experiences, but some examples of some reasons and rationale why we would have a bylaw officer attending somebody's private property, and I know that this isn't just a philosophical debate about rights, so can you provide me some more concrete examples of when this would come into play?
Councillor Perry, I'm sure it'll come back in the report, but I understand the intention. So Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Some examples that come to mind: tree cutting and destruction of trees, where it's absolutely critical to obtain entry in order to gather evidence. So if there's a violation of tree destruction, if we have to provide notice, wait to get on the property, we're going to lose the ability to gather our evidence, and that will hinder our prosecution efforts. Other issues that come to mind are pool enclosure issues, which is a matter of public safety, and that includes the fencing, the gate, and those types of issues, as well as accessory structures that might facilitate climbing of a fence and allow for children or the general public to gain access to a swimming pool. Other areas, fill bylaw, for example, is another one. Contaminated fill being dumped on a property without rights of entry, wouldn't be able to gather evidence in order to have a successful prosecution. Those are a couple that come to mind.
Councillor? Councillor Perry on. There you go.
Those all seem like some of the exceptions to the rules that we'd be implementing, because I think those fall under the environmental. Are there some instances that come to mind that would fall within the new guidelines that we would be looking to put in place? Is anything coming to mind about something where it would make sense to have to go and get a warrant?
Ms. Van Loan, do you care?
Thank you for clarifying. So something to obtain a warrant. Possibly some property standard issues. I have to state at this point in time, though, property standards bylaws are passed under the Building Code Act, and rights of entry are contained within the Building Code Act. And therefore, it is a provincial legislation that governs.
And not something that we could change?
That's correct.
Councillor?
So, again, can you give me an example, or does nothing come to mind, of something that I understand the intent, I agree with the intent, but is there an example of something you can give me that would make sense for us to moving down this path, where going out to go get a warrant, if somebody says no, would be not a hindrance to the operation? I'm
Councillor Thompson.
It's just to bring back a report at this time.
Just to clarify, I'm just trying to get a better understanding of whether or not this is truly just a philosophical debate, or whether there are some hard applications. And
Councillor Perry, thank you, and I appreciate your explanation, and I find it favor Councillor Thompson, because I did give you the latitude to ask initially and to give a brief example, and now we're getting into specifics that will be borne out. So if you could finish talking, and we've covered that area.
Again, I'm in favor of going out to get a report. I'm in favor of the safety issues that can be afforded to our staff members moving forward. I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Kim, I'll take Councillor Marakis next because he hasn't spoken, then Councillor Roberts. Councillor Kim. On the motion as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of the motion. Certainly, this is not an easy issue, or there's a lot of complexities to it, but in terms of the spirit of the intent of the motion, I'm in favor of it. I certainly don't think bylaw officers should be entering without permission. In fact, I wasn't aware until a couple of months ago. But then when you delve deeper into why that is, you can kind of understand why that is. And certainly there are some instances where privacy interests are trumped by other interests, as was stated. In particular, where there will be instances where public safety, health, and well-being, outweighs the values of public safety. One of the things I was thinking about when I was reading this and considering this is that if we had to, I'm not sure what the warrant process is, but if you were to go to Newmarket Court, I'm not sure, email them or you go directly to them and you ask the judge for a warrant, the judge would look at us and say, under the Municipal Act, you have the ability to go in, and you just took yourself out of there, and now you're coming to me for a warrant so you can get in. It seems kind of paradoxical when you put it that way, because we want access because it's an emergency, and here we are into a court, that's lined up with people, and we're hearing and reading about all these courts that are filled with cases, warrants and so forth, and I think Alberta, that has this warrant process, they're asking lawyers and other applicants to, speed it up. If it's not urgent, they don't even pass it. So those are the things I'm juggling in my head, and I'm just wondering, is there a happy medium where we can respect the rights of owners and their privacy, and at the same time that we don't jeopardize the safety and rights of their neighbors next to them? So, I hope that the report will contain some answers to what I just requested, because I would imagine the judge would probably laugh at our face, saying we had the power and then we just rescinded that and we're coming and crowding up their court system. So, that said, my concerns are there, but in spirit, I do believe that that we should ask for permission and that there should be some, timelines and all that involved. And I look forward to staff report.
Thank you. Councilor Marakis, first time on the motion as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I was hoping to wrap it up, but if Councillor Humphreys wants to speak, she can go ahead of me. I was just going to kind of give a little. Go right ahead.
So,
Councillor
that's
Humphreys.
okay, through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry to drag this out longer, but again, I'm in complete favor of the motion. Just a couple of questions. One of the things I feel with, and I'm going to try to say this so I don't want to offend any efforts of staff. They do a great job consistently. But when it comes to bylaw, I feel like there's such a, there's nothing I can go by other than what it is. And, we as councillors, we've been there. We get residents' concerns, and, we don't basically leave it in the hands of what, what the, I guess the guidelines on the protocols for bylaw, and basically they're laws of our town. So obviously they're very stringent. My question is, do we have a way to review, or do we review all cases? What's our governance model around cases that come in, and is that something that, just from a council perspective, we stay completely out of? For me, I like to understand that, like, I think the jurisdiction of bylaw, it stays with bylaw, absolutely, but it's almost like I have a really tough time having I can't say we're doing a great job or we're not doing a great job. I feel like with parks, everything else, we've got a good mechanism to understand KPIs, but in bylaw, I think we have a good way, absolutely, for building inspections. I think we do a great job, and we have to be very strict and everything else. It's just the others, enforcing bylaw. How are we doing? Are we doing a good job? Are we not? I think that's where I'm struggling. So, do we have that, through you, Mr. Chair? Do we have a mechanism where we can understand?
I'm going to say that the complaints about bylaw far outnumber the compliments. The way of measuring is by the number of complaints, I would imagine, is how we would do it. A review process, I'm not going to.
Okay, maybe it'll come back in the report. We can ask something, but for me, I wouldn't mind just going, going through this, and if there's some way to think about in terms of, is there a way that we can understand the governance model around bylaw enforcement is very important for me. So I understand that, but let's move forward. Sorry.
Okay, we're not suggesting a workshop, though.
No,
okay.
no workshop.
So if there's,
I'll leave with the professionals.
Councillor Perry, I think this will be your last time. Okay.
Very quickly, just could whatever report comes forward consider the metrics, if we have them available, of how many times we're going onto people's properties now? Just provide us more information. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments or questions, Councillor Marakis, final time, second. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll be brief because I'm hearing that there's a consensus to move forward with this, so I'm quite thrilled and happy about that. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that came out of the discussion. We're looking at instances of emergencies or where there's public safety. We're asking for that to be excluded in this, and because we realize that there is some instances where those are. So let's identify what they are, so we know what they are. The other thing that I would like to see that I don't necessarily have in here, but I would like to see in the report that comes back as well is the fact that how do we measure whether a complaint is real or not? Because right now, I don't even have to be in this province, and I could lay a complaint against someone. Could lay a complaint against me and say, call up and say, hey, you know what, so and so lives here, and their pool enclosure's not that. They have issues with it, and they're in violation of the bylaw. How do we identify which ones are real and which ones aren't, and how do we, when do we actually go out, and if we go there? And so these are the things that we need to look at, and as Councillor Thompson pointed out, that's the point of this, is we need to delve deep into our policies and our protocols and make sure that not only are we protecting our residents, but we're also affording them their rights. And so I think that's important. So I'll just ask for a recorded vote, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And just before we go to the recorded vote, I just want to say that from my point of view, understanding and getting educated, knowing the difference between building code and property standards would be a great value to us and our public. And I had an unfortunate experience where I lived, not in Aurora, where a composter wasn't being done right, and it was an overwhelming problem, and he wouldn't let anyone on. And when bylaw finally went on his property, they said it was one of the worst cases they'd ever seen. So we know there are instances, I know firsthand, where you have to, there has to be some sort of intercept to manage the health and welfare of all the residents. And that's the fine line, and we're going to get that all back. So I thank everyone for their comments. I thank Councilor Marakis for the notice of motion and staff. So on a recorded vote, Madam Clerk.
This is a recorded vote on motion A, Councilor Marakis, regarding bylaw right of entry powers as amended. Councilor Humphreys? Yes. Councilor Humphreys votes yes. Councilor Perry? Yes. Councilor Perry votes yes. Councilor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilor Thompson votes yes. Councilor Marakis? Yes. Councilor Marakis votes yes. Councilor Kim? Yes. Councilor Kim votes yes. And Councilor Abel?
I vote yes.
Councilor Abel votes yes. So that carries.
Good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so that wraps up the notice of motions. Oh, there's one more notice of motion from the mayor. I thought we would defer. Can I have a motion to defer? Councilor Marakis, seconded Councilor Thompson. Any questions, comments? I'll take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, thank you. One opposed. Okay, so Madam Clerk, next on our agenda, if there's questions you want, yes, we can defer those. So could I have a notice of motion on that? Councillor Perry, seconded. Councillor Humphreys, deferral on the regional report. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. New business? Yep. New business. I'll start on my right. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to point out that the federal budget came out. The FCM had a lot of big wins, including investments in affordable housing and transit. When we went to Ottawa back in November, those were some of the things that we advocated for. So once I get the report back from the FCM, it's definitely something I'll bring back to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. On the federal budget? All right. Well, I'm curious too. Go ahead, ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me the latitude to ask this question. We've been talking about transit and how important transit is, and Councillor Perry brought up transit, and it's my understanding that they actually cut the tax rebate. So while everyone is saying that we need to get out of our vehicles and getting into transit and using that transit to get from A to B, we're finding out that the federal government has decided to not allow you to expense your transit costs. So I find that a little bit counterproductive.
Thank you, and I'm sure once we get the report back, we can have a fulsome discussion, perhaps not here, but somewhere. If that's it for new business, I was asked on new business to address Councillor Marakis. You said that I alleged something, and I really asked you a question. And I'm sorry if you felt that I was accusing or being accusatorial, but I was really, there was more to the question. If you had responded back, I could have explained myself better, and perhaps maybe I can after. If there are nothing else, we will go to bylaws. Public service announcements. I'll start on my left. Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Maracas. Usually the mayor has a list. He took it with him? All right, so the Easter egg hunt's coming. All right. That's it for public service. Bylaws? Could I have a motion for the bylaws? And could we have those listed, please? How many do we have today? They used to have numbers and now they have letters. All right. So we have a number of bylaws here. Could I have a motion to put those on? Can we do them all at once? Councillor Perry, seconded. Councillor Thompson, any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Madam Clerk. Confirming bylaw? Motion confirming bylaw. Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Councillor Perry, seconded. All in favor? We can't leave until we pass this. All in favor? All in favor. That passes, Madam Clerk. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim, Councillor Humphreys, all in favor? That passes. We are now adjourned. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Councillor.